Good morning. We're about to get started. Ladies and gentlemen, if you could take your seats, we would very much appreciate it. And if you could silence your phones throughout the duration of the meeting, we thank you in advance. Supervisors, are we ready?
Yes.
Okay, I have turned on the recorder. The time is now 9:32 a.m. I'm going to call the meeting of the Venetian Community Development District to order. Today is Monday, January 9th, 2023. The first item on the agenda is the call to order / roll call. Those supervisors that are present are Rich Bracco, Ernest Booker, Ken Smaha, Cheryl Harmon, and Jill Pizarnik. On behalf of District Management is myself, Belinda Blandon. District Council Andy Cohen is present. Field Manager Keith Livermore is present. We do have John Fowler, Landscape Inspection Services Manager, present. On behalf of Vesta, we have Jeffrey Thomas and Julie Cortina. And for the record, supervisors, we do have representatives from Dana Investments present, as well as District Engineer Rick Shopker. The next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Ladies and gentlemen, we ask that you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please take off your hats.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the next item on the agenda is the public comment portion of the agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder, we will limit public comments to 3 minutes per person. Our first speaker is Ruth Corder.
Good morning, Mr. President, board members, and my fellow residents of the BGRC. My name is Ruth Cordner, and I just want to let you know that on January 5th, we had an informal resident meeting here at the River Club at 10 o'clock, and people just pretty much came to talk about issues, concerns, and try to help each other with certain problems that they're having to address these issues. There were a couple of issues that were presented, and I just wanted to make you aware of them, that people are talking about them and a little concerned. One of them is the pothole and the broken speed bump on Benito and Montaluna. The other is security. People have been talking about, especially on the access road and over by where the back gate is, they noticed that people are coming in to the Venetian. Some of them are walking around on their property, even though they're not residents. They were just concerned about that and wanted to know what they could do to mitigate that. The other is, they brought up an internal traffic study, because they figure with Laurel Road being widened, there's going to be a change in traffic patterns within the community, and they just want to know how that would impact us inside the gate. Another one was the pond on Padova. It was kind of drained, and there used to be water there, and the gentleman that lives on Padova wants to know what's going on with the irrigation, or how come the water is not back. And another person brought up the stop signs around the circle. Just didn't think they were necessary, and just wanted, wanted to know why we have stop signs there. But those were the issues that were brought up, and I know you're probably aware of them, but I just wanted to let you know. Thank you.
Bruce, we have already approved, thank you for coming today, by the way. We've already approved the replacement of those speed bumps on Benito. The vendor just hasn't gotten here yet.
It starts tomorrow.
The vendor starts tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next speaker is Tyler Cassell.
Hi, good morning. My name is Tyler Castle. Happy New Year, everybody. I have two things to say. Number one, there's a sign outside the back gate about the city council hearing in reference to the pickleball courts. It's placed in the wrong place. Nobody can see it out there. It has to be in the front gate, or it should be up here by the corner of the parking lot. So I'm requesting that one of you request the city move that sign. Number two, my comments are about the notes that were presented that I said on December the 12th. On page 2, line 61 to line 66, it says, Mr. Castle advised that he met with Mrs. Mitzi Fielder regarding a new solar water pump for the Medici burn. I had no meeting with Mitzi. I have never met with Mitzi Peter about that. What I said was I attended the public meeting that she had called a conversation with Mitzi with about 50 other people. I didn't say anything about the Medici berm. I said that the new water pump was for the pond above Bella Vista Terrace that would help with the flooding in that area up there. I also mentioned that the helicopters were low and flying low, a lot of noise around here because they were using the small helipad in back of the Venice Firehouse. That was not reported. It also says Mr. Castle advised the additional 10 acres. The additional 10 acres have been added to the park to include a total of 12 pickleball courts. I did not say that. What I said was the city was negotiating to buy another 4.9 acres to add to the 5 acres that already exists, making the park about 10 acres, and if they were successful in that negotiation, they would add 3 more pickleball courts. So I did mention that landscaping should be done along the Medici Court on Laurel Road, but I want to remind you that these minutes are very, very important. It's the accuracy of these minutes are very, very important. They go into the public record. The public record can be used for legal cases. It's a very, very serious thing to put undocumented statements and so on in the public record. I'm requesting that these notes be changed. I've already sent a request to Rich Bracco, to Belinda, and also to Mitzi Fiedler because she was included in action that she did not do. So I'm requesting before you approve these minutes that you make these requests as I've suggested. Thank you.
Tyler, one of the things I think we can do, because as I recall, you handed a written statement to Belinda from last meeting. Is that correct?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
To you and to Mitzi.
Oh, well, yeah, about the information that went on there.
Right.
What we can do, I believe, Belinda, we can strike your comments and we can add your addendum. How does that work?
The comments as I said.
Strike your comments as they're
But
noted.
You can always go back to the recording and tell them exactly what I said.
Well, how about if we include what you wrote and hand it in?
Fine.
Okay, we can do that. So what we'll do today is either approve these minutes based upon what I just said when we get to that point in the agenda,
Okay.
or we'll put it off to the next agenda. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Okay.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Darlene Schimberg.
Good morning, everybody. Happy New
Morning.
Year.
I think that this is a year that we should go into an audit mode when it comes to this club. There's several areas that I think need to be addressed. And I sincerely believe, and I've said this in the past, that if you are willing to create some ad hoc committees to provide you with a fresh look as to what is going on in this club, it would be to your advantage. I'd like to know how many full-time employees are salaried, how many are not salaried, how many part-timers do we employ, how many temps, what are people's hours, when should they be present in this office? Because I see a lot of closed doors, a lot, with nobody in them. Do we have a manager on site every weekend? And if not, why? Do we have a membership director? We do not have a bottomless pocket, and as someone with some experience in business, you pay dearly for temporary help. I don't see that changing recently. I see more temporary help than I see employees of this club. Also, I think that 2023 should be focused on internal costs and how we are spending our money. I, as many other members in this community, felt that the cost of some of the events that we've had recently far exceeded the attendance that was, and I'll give this as an example, the New Year's Eve celebration. From the menu that I saw and the cost, it was a very expensive event. There were only 60 covers, or 70, I'm not sure which is the correct number. I've heard both. That is not acceptable for an event like that at $150 a cost, and that is why a lot of people did not attend. The cost was way too high. The maintenance in this club is truly lacking. Who oversees the maintenance? Do we go to Jeff when something is broken, or Miles? Who's in charge?
What is the chain of command and how is it handled? It's about time that we let people do the jobs they were hired for. We have some great people in place with great attitudes. Let them soar. The old adage is to surround yourself with competence and you will be a success. I feel that Julie has done that, and now we need to see what they can do on their own. So I'm going to leave it at that. I appreciate your time, but I really, really think that this needs to be looked at, and it's gone too far. So thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Todd Meyer.
Before you start the clock, I'm gonna sit here. I have to leave immediately after presenting, so I'm not being rude. It's not that I just wanna jump on you guys and leave. So don't start the clock. It doesn't work for the guy who owns the clock, and runs out the door, right? So, so I'm here basically to talk about emails, again, as always. So we have an email list, which gets put out there. And I recently looked up, why did I get so upset about this list? And it basically started in September 13th of 2020. I got bombarded with emails from Marshall Happer, which was talking about the golf club being sold, members for the CDD that were golfers that were gonna buy the club. It was a lot of misinformation and misleading, and the problem is you couldn't reply back to that email. So it referenced Ernest Booker, Richie Bracco, Ken Salia. It just wasn't fair. And Ernest finally was able to reply in September. We then go to August of 2021, and we were bombarded with emails about Comcast. And we have boards here. We have a POA. He could have shown up like every normal person and given us 3 minutes, but he bombards the community with emails which are misleading. They disparage board members, people that work hard. And it undermines the fabric of the board. He undermines the fabric of the CDD board and the POA board. They can't function. We then go to the pickleball courts. You guys did that all wrong. It's in his emails. So he undermines the CDD board. We then go to, in January 6th of 2022, I wrote him and said, hey, maybe you could use your email for some good and help me out. Melissa Aspel is very ill. Could you please email and people give them to her GoFundMe page? He replied back, no, I can't do that. I canceled my membership. It was $30 a month. Okay, so that speaks volumes there. Now and then we go to 9/21/22, and there's a zillion emails. I'm just picking the ones. He solicits this whole community for support of his council member in Venice Council, Ron Smith, who did lose. Now, October through December, all we hear is about Pat O'Neill. The problem with these emails are they're misleading. It's his opinion. He feels free to say he's a lawyer. He undermines the board. He creates untrust in the community. And then just recently, and I have emailed him back, I've been transparent, and I've said, you gotta stop. Look at Jill's emails. They're informative. They don't disparage anybody. They don't say, hey, Steve Tomasetta refused to follow the law, refused to do this. We don't know the facts. No one can reply back. So he shoots it out in the universes, completely disregards the boards, and no one can reply back. So I ask you to please pass a resolution that if people want to use this list, and they want to get this list, whether they have it already or they want to use it, you need to send emails to reply all. If you can't do that, then I need you to make a directory for every person to have the same right to reply all. People have to go and defend themselves and they can't. And it's not right. We could have a widow move in here and start a gardening club, and he doesn't like the gardening club. And he sends out emails saying it's all done wrong, and she's got to go spend $30 a month to try and reply back. Okay, I guess that's it. Am I done?
Yes.
Let me just finalize with this. In his emails, he ran for a POA board because he said there's no more trust in the community. He created that lack of trust. He says he wants full transparency. Tell me, what is full transparency about sending an email out, telling everybody what's wrong with the community, and not letting anybody reply back? Lastly, he says it's a democracy. It's not a democracy. All right, I gotta go back to work.
Okay.
I'm sorry I have to leave.
Todd, just one suggestion. Todd, one suggestion as you leave. Just block his email. block his email if you don't want to get them, but I would suggest.
But I will probably be one of his victims as well. He's like a
Hey, look.
community bully, in my opinion, right? What do I have to do?
Don't worry about it.
No, it should be taken
Okay.
care of, so everybody can reply.
Thank you, Todd.
I'm not gonna stop it.
Our next speaker, thank you, Todd. Our next speaker is Pat Hinch. Pat?
Good morning, everyone. I want to address a business item from your agenda today, 5I, consideration of synergy lighting proposal for upgrading tennis court lights to LED. The purpose of this project is not so much an upgrade, but installing lights that actually work. You may not all be aware that prior to August 2021, all 6 tennis courts were lit by high-intensity discharge, or HID lights, original to when the courts were constructed over 20 years ago. Not state-of-the-art, but functional, and residents were able to use the courts at night. There was evening play on a regular basis. Play occurred year-round with reduced numbers in the summer. There were groups of 4 to 5 courts playing on Monday and Friday nights. A Wednesday night mixed doubles group was to begin in the fall of 2021. Also a few ladies groups and individual residents. It's not possible to provide you with playing statistics, only personal accounts, as these groups were formed by residents. At that time, there were no programs organized by the tennis staff, so no documentation is available to provide actual numbers of people. In August 2021, instead of hiring a qualified electrician as recommended by the facilities and racket sports advisory committees, a previous River Club manager made an ill-considered decision and had a handyman replace the HID bulbs with the wrong LED bulbs for sports lighting. The ballasts inside the HID fixtures were thrown out, compounding the mistake. The lighting is inadequate for playing tennis. You can't see the ball. So as a result, residents have been unable to play tennis at night for a year and a half. So we're not looking at an upgrade. We're looking at replacing non-functioning lights, and they don't function because of a bad management decision. In sum, with the lights already in place, they need to function as intended. Currently, they do not. In the fall, we had the same company that gave you the bid, Synergy, replace the lights on courts 5 and 6. The lighting is fantastic. Ernest has a photo up there of court 6 at night, and it looks like the USTA Center in Orlando. It's fabulous. We also are lucky that we are working now with Dave Freeman of Tennis Connection, and he's got plans for us to have a real tennis program for the first time ever. I know he plans some evening events if we can get the courts lit. There will be a tie-in to food and beverage, so that's revenue for the club. Judging by the amount of people that were at the Tiki Bar opening last Friday, you could tell there is an appetite for these kind of activities. And it won't just be the tennis players, because our non-playing friends, non-playing spouses and partners can come and join us for the after party. So thanks for your time, and I hope you give this proposal serious consideration.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Suzanne. Suzanne, I'm sorry if I mispronounced her last name, but it looks like Jerry.
Yeah, hi.
Oh.
Good morning, I apologize because I do not have anything prepared. It's just sitting in my head and I had to come down here, jumped in my clothes, so here I am. So I didn't plan on reflecting on 2 things that were just shared, but there are 2 things first. I understand what the ladies sharing about the tennis courts and the people now in session here attending in the River Club being all present now that are not usually here. In that respect, I would love to see the CDD take a look at the funding that is provided for things like evening. I know the Social Dining Committee has so much money, but I know CDD controls all that money. So I know that we'd love to probably see things like a piano player on a Sunday morning. Would that bring in a zillion people into the club on a regular basis for the brunch? Yes. Right now, maybe they're not accepting everybody who could be part of the brunch. I don't know why. I think it has something to do with the service people that are hired, not enough of them, because I've often tried to get in and then discovered later that there are plenty of seating, but there aren't plenty of servers, so that's an issue. Another issue is provide entertainment on a regular Friday night over at your beautiful new tiki bar. It's $100 an hour. There's a zillion people out there. I've actually walked up and asked people, oh yeah, we'll do it, $100, one person, guitars, beautiful. Also, it's just they move them underneath the fitness tennis court, fitness area, because you need more people around the bar and you can't hear each other, so move them to a different area. Wasn't planning on speaking to that. I was planning, nor either this gentleman with the email, because a lot of people don't know what's going on in this CDD or all the POAs and CAAs and all the committees and that and this, because we're not present. Look at who's present today. I don't know how many are zooming in. So that is very informative. And if we didn't have Marshall doing that, not that I'm saying hurrah for Marshall, if we didn't have that, we would not have the internet system we have today, which is really a very important internet, et cetera, et cetera. So that's not why I'm here. I'm here to actually speak to the commercial
Got about a minute
development.
more, so you better rush.
I know, yeah. So that piece is super important. I know 0 years ago with WCI that they had a POA because WCI was still here. They needed a word to start. They had people like Marshall Happer on there, people like Mike Cratchey, people like Harry Ornstein, people that really knew what they were doing and had connections in town. Super important people, knew what they were doing. They started that way. So POA was really powerful. Now I feel like POA is handling things they shouldn't be handling. I feel like there's certain things that CDD should be working with POA with when it comes to things like the meal development. I really don't think it should be the community association, somebody that's not elected, like Roger Efron speaking with Neil, when the survey clearly indicated they didn't want anybody speaking with Neil on a regular basis, sharing our opinions along with Mitzi on town council, because I went to that meeting last week, and she was talking about the Venetian. Anyway, my last point is, it does affect a common area. And when I first came to you, I said, it's affecting our common area, folks. You need to take a look at the CDD. Oh, we can't do it, it's POA, it's outside our common area. Well, it's not. Security is going to be impacted in a big way. We live near Citadel Exit. We see people coming in and out of there, walking in and out of there, biking in and out of there, coming to fish, people climbing over the walls, under the walls over at Apple Union Court. We don't have a cement wall. Do we need to construct one to remain safe if they put commercial development there? Right, we probably do. Do we need another gate over here with security? Yes, we probably
Suzanne, I'm
need
gonna have-
another gate.
I'm gonna have to
Coming
stop
in
you.
and out.
Sorry, I'm gonna have to stop you.
Why is that
You have your
3
3
minutes?
minutes.
He talked longer than that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And our final speaker is Diane Wendroff.
I will be much shorter than that. Good morning. I'm here to speak in support of restoring lighting to the 4 tennis courts without playable lighting. I'm basically echoing Pat's point here. I organize a mixed doubles group of about 20 and growing residents for evening tennis. Currently, we have 2 playable courts. By way of background, there used to be 6 with lighting until prior administration, quote, fixed the courts. Shout out to Tim Carr for improving the lights that we have on the 2 playable courts right now. We feel it's necessary to restore the courts for the following reasons. 1, more people will be able to use the courts. Currently, only 8 people can use the 2 courts, and we have to turn away people every week. Number 2, opportunities for serving underserved residents, for example, working people and children who really don't have a lot of, what should I say, exposure here because they're working or they're in school, but we see them come out at night to play tennis. And 3, we're delivering on the contract that all of us signed when we bought at the Venetian, signing on to the amenity of lighted tennis courts. We shouldn't have to ask, are they playable?
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you. There being no further public comments, we're going to close out public comment at this time and move forward with the agenda. Supervisors, before moving into staff reports, since we do have representatives from Dana Investments present, do we want to move forward with their presentation first and then jump back into staff reports?
We can. We have a few other people here. I know LNP is here. We have a couple of others. We can do that. We can have Dana come up and then go back to staff report.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. So we do have Jerry Jasper with us. Good morning, Jerry. I know you want to make introductions.
Good morning.
This morning, we got Dana Investment Advisors here to make a presentation on how they would propose to optimize our cash, both in our reserve accounts and in our operating accounts. Dana has presented to the Reserve Finance Committee and also has conferenced with Rosetta and Company. And Rosetta, and they are both comfortable that Rosetta's operating and financial accounting systems are certainly compatible, and any relationship with them, there would be not a problem along those lines. As a result, the committee recommends and encourages the Board of Supervisors to engage Dana as our cash management advisors. So also, after their presentation, one of our committee members, Mark Meadowbrook, is available to make a short presentation from the committee's point of view and also answer, again, questions from the committee's point of view. We brought Mark. Mark spent most of his career in the cash management business, so he's very familiar with companies such as Dana, so he can speak from his experience. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and introduce Dave Mazza and Matt Solinsky. Both are from Dana's Washita, Wisconsin offices. That's their main offices. And also here is Greg Peters, who is from their local office, which is just outside of Orlando. Who's going to start? Greg?
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Thanks for having us. So I'm going to just give you a quick firm overview, and then I'll pass it over to Dave and Matt to roll with the nuts and bolts. So I'll start at page 4 there, and you can see the first bullet there. We were founded back in 1980. We were actually founded by a man named Mike Dana. That's sort of where the name came from. He has since retired, and he lives on the east coast of Florida now. You can also see the next bullet there. We're 100% employee owned, so that's the good news. We get to call our own shots. We get to make our own decisions. We don't have Big Brother watching over us, telling us what to do or what not to do there. And you can see, not only do we have fixed income strategies and solutions, but we also do some equities, have some equity strategies. So we cover both equities and fixed income at the shop there. At the end of September, you can see assets under management were $6.5 billion. And the last Friday, I saw the preliminary number for year end, and that was $6.7 billion for year end. And as mentioned, we are in a suburb of Milwaukee is the home office there. Then flipping to page 5. Just a few awards there. I'll just point out one in particular. The one in the middle in the green there, Pension Investments Best Places to Work for Money Management. We won this award in 2021, and we also won it again last year in 2022. So that's 11 years in a row that we won this award. And we're really proud of this award because it really shows the strong family culture we have at the firm there. So we always like to present that. And finally, just 2 seconds about me. I do live in Orlando. I do travel around the state of Florida, visiting our clients in Florida, talking about their investments and also the markets. So that's sort of what I do here for Dave. With that, let me pass it over to Dave and give you more of the nuts and bolts of what we can do for you.
Thanks, Craig. I am Dave Mazza. To show you, if you want to flip back to page 14, Greg didn't give himself enough credit for the work that he does in Florida. Page 14 just gives you a sample of all the different Florida accounts that Dana helps those municipalities and organizations with their investments. And as you can see, there are quite a few here in Florida. So I wanted to point that out as well to show you that Greg does cover a lot of ground down here in Florida. I will get in on start on page 6 and just give a little bit of what Dana does for clients such as the Venetian County Development District. We've got a long history of providing value-added integrated fixed income solutions through various interest and economic cycles. We've been around since 1980. We were started as a fixed income shop. So if you think back to 1980 and the things that have progressed since then, the taper tantrum, the financial crisis, the volatility that we're going through now, we've got a long history of going through those cycles and still adding value to our clients. What we do is we have integrated solutions that we build on client-specific fixed income solutions. And that's what we're doing here. Our proposal for the VCDD is a client-specific fixed income solutions. We don't really offer mutual funds or off-the-shelf solutions. We work with institutions to find out what exactly they're trying to accomplish, what their needs and goals are, what their risks are, what their return objectives are, and then developing a customized solution that meets that specific individual need and objective. And that's what we've been doing for 30 or 40 years. Page 7 just kind of shows you how we do that, and we've talked through this with the finance committee here. We look at all these different needs before we come up with a solution. We look at your cash flows, liability management, your investment policy, or help you build one if you don't have one, credit restrictions, interest rate sensitivity, what kind of yield are you looking for? What kind of asset classes are you looking for? We look at all those different items and what the client is trying to accomplish, and then we take our expertise over the years and we put together a custom solution that we think will work for this individual client. And again, these everything that we put together is client specific. It's not a mutual fund. It's not an investment pool where it's one size fits all. Everything that we do is tailored to the individual client. Some of the expertise that we've got, you can see on page 9. We work anywhere from a very short, very conservative, what we call our limited volatility strategy, up through municipal bonds, ESG bonds, Dana intermediate bonds, and preferred income. This all isn't applicable to you, but it just shows the expertise that Dana's got. We've got Matt here, one of our portfolio managers, but we also have 3 portfolio managers and a fixed income chief investment officer back at the home office, where we've got expertise in all of these different solutions. And depending on what the client is looking for, we will take expertise and solutions that we've got here that's specific to an individual client. You can see here that there's certainly a wide range of expertise that Dana has, but it is not all encompassing. At Dana, we're proud that we know what we are and we know what we aren't. And so we don't try and be all things to all people. We focus on our areas of expertise, and we do those, and we do those very well. And that's where when we find a client that has a need that matches up with an area of expertise that we have, that's a great fit, and that's how we develop successful long-term relationships. We've been around, as it's been mentioned, for 40 years, and we've got a lot of clients that have been with us for 20, 25, 30 years, and we value those long-term relationships, and it's a great example of the value that we bring and the fact that clients like to work with us and they stay with us because they see the value that we bring. And so that's a little bit of background on Dana and our fixed income capabilities. And now I'll turn it over to Matt to share what our proposal is based on what we've learned about VCDD.
Thanks, Dave. As Dave said, I'm Matt Slowinski. I'm one of the portfolio managers for Dane Investment Advisors, and I would be the lead portfolio manager for this engagement. I'm going to start on page 10 and just real briefly kind of hit some of the areas of expertise that Dave mentioned. So specifically for your portfolios, we've looked at, obviously, you've got several different buckets of money, if you will, that have different unique goals. Some of them are operational, some are reserve funds. All of those can be invested in different styles. So one thing you'll notice if you look at page 10, we've got a broad expertise in a number of different asset classes, from treasuries to municipal bonds, repo, agency bonds, instrumentalities. One thing you will notice, though, we don't do anything in high yield. We are a high quality investment manager. 95% of the assets that we manage in fixed income are government securities, AAA rated U.S. government securities. For your engagement, most likely what we would be using is, for the most part, treasuries. In some cases, we may use some agencies or instrumentalities for some of the reserve funds that can be invested a little longer, but it would be 100% a government portfolio based on what we know at this point. Page 11 has kind of an example that we put together. Now, this is specific to two of your portfolios, a couple of the assessment portfolios, the O&M and then the River Club. Both of those we looked at the current dues that were coming in and put together really a quick example of how that would work, knowing that those funds need to be spent down over the course of the year and then they're replenished at the following year. So if you look at the top, for example, the O&M account, you can see that the balance starts at 1.67 million and it draws down to zero over the course of 12 months. If you look at what your normal cash rate is in this environment, which is about 50 basis points, give or take, we would be looking at investing those in treasury bills on the short end of the curve, basically matching your liability stream up to your maturity date. So we essentially build a custom portfolio that over time unwinds and provides natural liquidity so that you can take those funds, spend them, and cover the costs that you have. Treasury bills right now, if we build a portfolio like that, are around 4.5% from anywhere from 3 months to 6 month bills. So if you look at that on kind of a net basis, we've even included our estimated management fee on those. Normally at 50 basis points, you'd earn about $4,500 in interest. At 4.5%, you're actually earning $40,000, just under $41,000. So you pick up net of fees almost $35,000 on the O&M account. Same thing if you look below in the River Club, it's about $33,000 because the balance is a little bit different. So by taking a little bit more of a customized approach, you can certainly pick up significant material interest earnings. And so that's kind of the approach that we look at. We're not talking about doing anything, as I said, with high yield, anything high risk. This is really just taking the money that you have and trying to maximize the efficiency of how it's invested. The reserve portfolios can be a little bit different. The debt service portfolio, those could be a little bit longer and certainly can be in agency securities potentially, as well as treasuries. A lot of that comes down to liquidity, and we've had some conversations about that as well. We didn't build up estimations on that because those funds really do need to be looked at a little bit closer as we get into that engagement to see if there are going to be cash needs down the road, even if it's 2, 3, 4 years out. We want to make sure we're building those needs in. Our approach when we build a portfolio is a buy and hold approach. We want to lock in the best interest rate we can for you and let that portfolio unwind over time as you need the cash. One of the things that most of our clients appreciate from our perspective in terms of the value we add, our customization also provides them liquidity without having to transact and incur those costs. So we try to do this as kind of as cost efficient as possible. Trading in and out of any security, whether it's an equity or a fixed income, has a cost to it. Same thing with CDs. You could buy a CD, and if you have an early redemption fee because you need those funds, there's a cost to it. And so Dana's perspective, we want to buy it right the first time. We're very careful about how we build a portfolio up front, make sure we have those conversations on the front end. Then we put the portfolio in place and let it work for you over time. We know, as Dave said, we've been doing this for a long period of time. We've got a lot of clients just like yourself that have kind of the same needs, where their portfolios need to unwind over time, or they have monthly cash withdrawals. Those clients generally have a very dynamic situation. It may change from year to year. You may have, a different value that comes in next year. You may have different expenses that come in. Working with Dana, one of the things that you'll get is somebody who's going to have those conversations with you as the circumstances change. We certainly take those into account and continue to customize that portfolio over time. So that's kind of the approach we take. Page 12 really quickly has the bios of our fixed income team, as Dave mentioned. We've got a broad experience within our fixed income team. We've got myself, I work on the short end of the curve, so all my portfolios are very much like your operational portfolio. We've got several condo associations that have the exact same kind of scenarios that you're talking about that I work with. We've got several managers that work on the tax exempt municipal side that can offer their expertise as well, intermediate all the way out to, kind of longer duration preferred income security. So we've got a deep experience within our team that in all of these portfolios, while I'm the lead portfolio manager, they are team approach. So, we have something that comes up within your portfolios. We have the resources to have those conversations and make sure that we can bring all of the expertise in on the engagement. And then the final piece I'll hit on real quickly is on page 13, and it's just kind of a broad review of Dana. As you said, we've been doing this for a long period of time. On the front end of the curve specifically, we've managed nearly $2 billion for many different clients. Most of them are very similar in nature where they have customized portfolios. And with us, you're going to get somebody who understands those needs and is willing to have those conversations and sit down and do the hard work of getting into your financials and understanding the situation prior to investing in it, as opposed to, as Dave said, kind of an off-the-shelf mutual fund approach. We've got many clients in here in Florida. We understand state statutes. We understand all those things within your investment policy statements and what those should look like. So we're able to accommodate that as well as we build out the portfolio. And then, finally, if you look at kind of the bottom there, we're members of GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association. We're up to date on all the best practices, and those are also kind of what we do as we build out our portfolios, and we'll incorporate that knowledge into what we're doing for you here as well. So with that, I'll stop. And if there's any questions, we're certainly happy to take them.
One of the last comments I'll make that is on the same page 13 as well. One of the things that, as I started talking with Jerry and the finance committee, one of the things that the development district did not have was an investment policy, which is certainly very important to have, kind of the first step in the process. We have drafted a sample investment policy for the district to consider. As Matt said, we're members of the GFOA, and we work with, 43 municipalities, counties, municipal insurance companies, clients very similar to the development district. And so we've seen great investment policies. We've seen some not so good investment policies. I passed along just a sample of what we thought was a good investment policy to help get the ball moving. There's no reason to make you recreate the wheel and create an investment policy on your own. So we went ahead and took the liberty of drafting an investment policy and sending that over in hopes that that would help get this process moving along, because that's certainly something very important that a client has to have. And I know that that's under review, and there certainly might be changes made, but at least it gives you a good head start from an investment policy standpoint, because that's something everybody's got to have. So with that, any questions or comments on what Dana does or what we would be doing?
I have a question, obvious question. Fees, how are you compensated?
We are compensated based on the amount of assets that you would choose to have Dana manage for you. So our fee is 20 basis points on all assets. So we don't get paid for trading. There's nothing involved from a trading standpoint, so that some managers do that. The more they trade, the more they get paid. That's not the way we do it. We charge strictly on the amount of assets that you give us to manage. So our fee is 20 basis points on all the assets that we manage. That puts us in the same boat as you. as assets increase, we get paid more because we get paid 20 basis points on higher assets. If the assets get lower, we get paid 20 basis points on lower assets.
So Dave, I had I guess the pleasure of meeting you prior to all of this through the finance committee.
Thank you
have
for
a
saying
minimum-
that was a pleasure.
It was good. Another chance to get out of Wisconsin. There you go. You have a minimum fee of $2,000.
Correct.
So the understanding is that the amount of money that we might consider fluctuates.
Yep.
We're heavy with cash maybe in December or so, and come the end of the fiscal year, as we get into June, July, and August, it drops down, as you show in your chart.
Yep.
So how do you then determine the amount that you're investing for us? Because it does fluctuate. Take an average.
Yeah, what we will do is we will, at the beginning of every quarter, we will look at the assets that are in your account, and we will assess the 20 basis points on whatever assets are in that account at that time.
Okay.
So in January, and you can see that on page 11 in our fee, the estimated Dana fee for January at the beginning of the year, when you're quote unquote cash rich, our fee is $839. By the end of the year, the fourth quarter fee, when the cash is less, the Dana fee is only $209. So
The reason I bring that up is because there was a question that was brought up by a resident about the 20 basis points, and it was simple math that was there. So if we were talking about an average of $3 million, which I believe is what we had discussed at the meeting, on an average of $3 million, your fee, annual fee would be about $6,000, correct?
About 6,000, correct. And in this example that we showed you here, the interest that we would be earning based on the information that we got through talking with the finance committee and looking through some of the cash flow information that we got provided to us, we would be earning about $79,000 in income, less our $6,000 in fees. That's a net positive for the district of right around $70,000 net of our fees. Yes.
Maybe a two-part question. I'm looking at page 5 of, I think it was an investment questionnaire that we got first round, I think, from our, that I think we filled out for you. So your question 11, where it says expected maximum price volatility in a 12-month period, 2 to 5%. So we could actually, price volatility could take us negative. So I'm going to tie that to my next question, which is if we can get 4.5% on treasuries and do it ourselves, as long as we hold them to maturity, we have no risk. Why should we pay Dana if we can get 4.5%?
Yes, and we filled that question out as if, as you saw in the book, Dana does strategies from very short, and they progressively you try to reach for more return by taking a little bit more risk. Now that we have learned more about the district and what exactly we would be doing, Matt?
Yeah, that range should probably be 0 to 2%.
Yeah.
And typically we do them in ranges. So that one is tied to what would be our limited volatility strategy. And that we find out more about your risk profile, obviously knowing that these funds would be unwound over the course of the year and then replenished, your price volatility would be much less than that.
Well, it would be
Right.
0.
It would be 0. I mean, well, it would be 0. So it would not necessarily. So it would be 0 in terms of your overall risk if you hold to maturity.
Yes.
Right. But if you buy it and you actually look at like a mark-to-market basis, you could have swings in market value as rates move around. And that's what's getting encompassed in that question specifically.
Right.
You know,
And so
on a
that,
quarterly
Oh, I
basis, you may
understand.
see the price move, but if you're holding the maturity, that price movement is
It's irrelevant.
Yeah.
it's irrelevant. Yeah, that's what we're talking about, is that just like if you bought a CD, the disclaimer you see on every CD is if you redeem this early, there will be significant penalties. And so that just kind of takes into account that if you hold this to maturity, you're gonna be fine. If for some reason we would need to sell this early, then you're subject to, just like with a CD, a penalty, and the penalty would be, it's a security, the price moves, and we don't know which direction that would be. But yeah, 2 to 5 is more for our traditional limited volatility strategy, where we might be using multiple different types of securities. For your account, we would be using just treasuries, and that volatility would be much lower.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I have several questions. I'm over here, I have the mic, sorry.
Yeah.
That was a trick. First of all, I want to thank the Finance and Reserve Committee because this has been an endeavor that has been going on for a while, and I think you guys stuck with it to find somebody, and I really appreciate that. I think it's important for the community. First question, the account horizon in your contract is 10 years. I presume that is not a locked in. What if we have a catastrophic event and we need to clear our accounts? I need to know, A, is that possible? B, is there penalty for doing that? You can answer that.
So everything that we buy, as Matt mentioned, would be treasuries, AAA rated, government secure, very, very liquid. If for some reason, we set up that illustration on page 11 where we slowly draw it down every month. If for some reason you had a catastrophic event, all these securities could be sold today and you could have the cash tomorrow. So there would be no penalty for that, but you would be selling a security and you don't know what the price of that would be. It might be at a gain, it might be at a loss.
Right.
But because it is a treasury security, it's very liquid and we could sell that security very, very quickly.
In terms of the contract, though, to your point on the contract, there's no penalty to close out the contract with Dana.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That was my question.
it's terminable at any time by either party.
Yeah.
I agree with that provision.
Next question is, you said you would start with all treasury because of where it's at right now. How often would you rebalance and make recommendations about changing that as the treasury rates change?
So we would make those we would make those recommendations as market conditions change. Obviously, we're gonna have constant conversations with all of our clients and bring those recommendations to you. Our market outlook, though, it does have to match up to your account needs. So we may fund it this year and build a treasury ladder, for example. Next year, market conditions might be different. We might say, hey, no, now that we have a year of experience and we understand how you use this money and when you need it, maybe we can look at something a little bit different or put a portion of it in agencies or whatever that case is. We would come with that recommendation. But, in those types of scenarios where you have those kind of liquidity needs, it's very rare that we're going to come with a recommendation that would be something beyond that, like let's buy, agency mortgages or something like that. They don't fit. The risk profile doesn't fit what you need for your account. So whether or not those securities are good value to us in the market, they still have to match up to what we're trying to accomplish with your portfolio.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And we would have a little bit different, the example that we showed on page 11 was specific to the O&M and the reserve. There are some things like the debt service fund and other that are more like a savings account that if all goes well, we wouldn't need to be touching that. Once we would find out more about that, though that might be invested in a little bit different manner because there wouldn't be those monthly drawdowns. And so if we could do that, that would actually help increase the yield available to the district by treating those in their own manner as well, with their own individual customization.
And we would have to review the indenture because it could have some additional restrictions that might not be applicable to the O&M funds, for instance.
Thank you.
Sure.
Good morning, thank you. I have no issue at all with the company, Dana, using them. Finance committee's recommending that. That's great. My questions are, if you're investing primarily in U.S. Treasuries, is that direct investment or is it through like a Bank of America fund or?
No, it would be a direct investment.
So no additional fees?
Correct.
Under the fund?
Yep. And that's the nice part is we work with almost $1 billion of clients that are similar to this. And so that helps us in our execution and get better pricing for all of our clients, because we do this day in and day out, and we do a lot of trading in that market.
But I assume if you moved into adjustable rate mortgage funds or municipal bonds, corporate bonds, that would be out of some fund?
No, anything we do we buy individual securities, so it's all the bonds. So even if we bought municipal bonds, you would own that bond. We don't use funds because of the layered fees that come on
Yeah,
top.
great.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
good, thank you.
Yep, no funds, no pools, no anything like that, direct investment.
And over the last 6 to 12 months, there's certainly been a lot of market volatility. In the bond area, municipal or corporate bond area, what have you seen in terms of volatility that would add risk to our investing in those areas?
Well, I think the biggest risk, you're certainly right, there's been a lot of volatility, especially with the Fed and kind of what they've done this year in terms of tightening monetary policy. Again, for your types of portfolios, I think it's unlikely at this point that we'd be using those types of securities, certainly not in the operating portfolios. The volatility in those markets, though, it all comes down to your ability to hold those securities to maturity. And we've seen even short corporates, for example, that have been down 6, 7, 8%, if they're single A rated or triple B rated. I don't think those securities would be in your portfolio at any point based on what we know. Treasuries certainly have volatility as well, but again, that's where from our perspective, our best approach to managing these types of funds is to build a portfolio that we never have to trade out of. You can hold to maturity and then use those funds at the maturity date. The volatility in between there on a mark-to-market basis, and that kind of gets back to what we talked about earlier, it can vary. On something as short as these operating portfolios, it's going to be very, very low, very low. You're going to have the longest maturity you would have in your portfolio is about 11 months. So
Okay.
that's fairly short security.
And then once the account is established, I assume it's totally under your control at that point, and you're just guided by the investment policy we agree to.
We're guided by the investment policy. Obviously, as we go through the contract process, part of our agreement, we have asset classes that are approved or not approved, and those can be adjusted as needed. Mostly what we're guided by is our conversations with your staff and the finance committee. So, the policy is certainly there as a guiding document and should be in compliance with what you'd like to do and your goals. But in cases of these portfolios, before we make any change that's significant, we're going to have a conversation with the finance committee why we would recommend doing it.
And if we're primarily going to be in U.S. Treasuries, relatively short term, certainly for the first year or so, why wouldn't we just do it ourselves through our Fidelity funds the way it was done in the past?
It's certainly
What's
possible.
what's the advantage, I guess, of?
Well, the advantage, I guess, is first and foremost, the amount of time that it takes to do it. To get into it, is somebody has to be willing to manage the portfolio on your side and give up their time to do that. We view this as kind of an extension of our clients. Our customized approach is really us taking the work off of your desk so you can focus on what you're here to do. And if you want to trade securities, you can certainly do that. We aggregate, as Dave said, we're $1 billion of securities with our clients. So if we're trading the 3-month treasury for you, chances are we're buying a 3-month treasury for somebody else. So we may be buying 5 to 10 million of that security. Our pricing on a $5 million trade is going to be better than it would be on a $200,000 trade, for example. So there are efficiencies at scale that we have as well that you wouldn't have, but you can certainly do it. But it obviously takes the time and effort to go through that, and somebody to have that expertise and willingness to take on that responsibility.
I'd just like to comment on that too.
Maybe there's a misunderstanding here. Right now, I believe, like through Fidelity and so on, all is handled through there is the reserve accounts, the big, relatively long term. What now Dana will bring, they will handle all the operating funds also. So this, by the examples in here, could more than double the revenue because before that hasn't been handled. And I don't believe there's anyone sitting up there that wants to assure that Belinda has enough money in her checking account every month to pay her bills, as well as the River Club. And this is what they would do. They would take and invest the operating funds, which again, as much as $5 million starting there, that today just goes in a 0.5% money market.
Do you have any more questions, Ken?
No, I don't think so.
And then the last thing I would just add on is you talked about, monitoring, these investments would be held at your custodian bank account. They're your securities, they're held in your account. Dana does not hold them. You would be able to see those investments on a daily basis. We will provide monthly and quarterly reporting to you, so you can review the holdings and the trades and performance. And then we can come down and meet and provide economic and updates on the portfolio as much as you'd like. When we start with the client, sometimes they want to meet every quarter or every 6 months just to see how this thing is getting started and how it works. And then once they get comfortable with it, they're fine with meeting every 6 months to a year. It doesn't matter to us. You got Greg here, so he's available whenever. Matt and I are happy to come down as long as it's during January, February, or March. And then I think we should have meetings multiple times a week.
We would charge for that. I just wanted to talk process a little bit. Ultimately, of course, it's your policy decision, but, good brother, your things. Just process-wise, and we touched a little bit on this, as a local government institution, we're governed by Florida Statute 218.415. And when you take a look at that statute, it lays out that you can either adopt an investment policy, which needs to hit all these certain markers, or there's subsection 17 that says we adopt a no investment policy, and then you get to invest in only certain restricted items. So in the past, as really most CDDs do, we've adopted the subsection 17 no investment policy. So moving forward, if you wanted to change that, then as Dana said, they've prepared an investment policy for review. I took a look at it. I do have some changes and a few revisions to it, but by and large, I think that it's pretty obvious that they have the statute, whoever prepared it had the statute in front of them, and they made an attempt to hit every one of those provisions in the statute. I think it does a pretty good job at doing that. So, as I said, I think it's a good base. So moving forward, if that's something that you wanted to accomplish, then I think by resolution, we could adopt an investment policy, as well as include other items in that resolution as to who would be the point person, for instance, for contact and things along those lines. Now, we have a resolution on the books back from 2017. Regardless of what you do today, that needs to be updated because it has, for instance, Mr. Lusky's name in there and some other outdated items. So regardless of what you do today, I believe we need to move forward, preferably I would assume at your next meeting on the 23rd, with an updated investment, with an updated resolution from us. And we would either make just a few simple changes if you're keeping everything what I'll call as is, or if the idea is to move forward with what's been proposed today, we would incorporate into it adoption of an investment policy that we would attach. And it would be by and large the one that's they've proposed. I had a few changes, certainly if others have changes, we try and incorporate all of those. So that's the way I envision this just procedurally. And as we touched on before, it is clear in the documents that Dana provided for their contractual documents that their relationship is terminable at any time. And I really didn't have any changes to their, what I'll call their corporate documents. I was pretty straightforward. Once I saw that provision, it gave me a comfort level as well. So I'm glad to try and answer any questions, but that's just sort of the way I see the procedure in my head.
I think we have Mark Middlebrook.
I was going to say, yes, I think Mark's got a couple comments to make on behalf of the committee.
And brief comments, since I didn't know I was making comments. I'm Mark Middlebrook. I'm on the Finance Reserve, serving with a lot of other qualified folks. I have about 35 years of experience in my career dealing with institutional investment management and wealth management, primarily on the fiduciary side. I'm familiar with the firm of Dana, and I'm familiar with what they do. I'm familiar with what Mr. Solinsky does. I've managed a number of people that do what he does today and that he proposes to do for us. So the Finance Committee really found itself getting our questions answered and very comfortable relative to the institutional investment process, the quality of the investments that we would have, the fact that the investments would be consistent with statutory guidelines. And I think one of the more important aspects for us as we were listening is the ability to help us with the cash flow, with the maturities, not putting principal at risk, and being able to have cash available when we needed cash available, as opposed to an individual trying to project and time maturities of various investments. And the efficiencies that come with institutional investments have been discussed and demonstrated here. And so we highly recommend it because it is a necessary and positive step for the VCDD to move in this direction with professional money management, given the amount of money that we're responsible for. And so that is the primary reason for the recommendation. And if you have questions for our committee, we're certainly here to address them.
Thank you, Mark.
And I also wanted to add that the statute itself lays out that the priority should be the safety of principal and liquidity of funds. So that's right there, written into it.
Now, the whole purpose of this is to generate additional funds for the community, just to break it down to everyday terms. The Finance Committee, you may recall, took a look at our debt, and as a result of a lot of investigation, we've now taken what was a 6% interest rate and higher on part of our debt and reduced that to 2.4. So the Finance Committee, though it's probably the newest committee that is a part of the CDD, I think has done some great things. As Cheryl said, the investigation of what to do with our everyday cash, which is really what this is, and that comes from your ad valorem taxes. We're talking about what happens with that tax money once it comes to us. That's why I said, sorry, non-ad valorem, sorry. When that cash comes to us in December, when all the taxes come in and it winds up here, we do have a lot of money. So why can't we? The purpose of all of this is why can't we use that money to make some more money, just like you would in your own household? That's kind of what we're doing here, just to explain it very simple. So, and have I pretty well summed it up on a layman's level? Yeah. It's an opportunity that we have to make additional monies. That's really what it comes to. But still to ensure that we have plenty of money to pay our bills. So we know this year is going to be a little exceptional in some ways because of the hurricane damage and bills coming in for all kinds of stuff. So we need readily available cash all the time. But some of that cash that we have can be easily invested and earn more money. And that's what we're looking to do, is to earn more money for all of us here.
Okay.
So,
Go.
we would, yes. Go.
I would,
Would you like me to try and give it a shot? If you're interested in, I don't know what direction you're going, whether you want what I call leave things as is or move towards this potential of creating a relationship with Dana. But if it's the latter, then it would be a motion to authorize staff to prepare a resolution adopting an investment policy and a contractual relationship with Dana Investments. Is that sufficient?
So
You would put
moved.
both in the same resolution.
For now, yes, but we can do it, we can structure it differently. I mean, it's your, I tried to frame it, but it's your motion for it. So whatever your.
Shouldn't we adopt a policy first and then do a separate to engage Dana?
Could you repeat your motion?
I'll try.
I knew.
It was a motion to authorize staff to prepare a resolution to adopt an investment policy as well as a contractual relationship with Dana was the way I had framed it. And one of the board members is bringing up an issue of splitting that apart.
If it's appropriate, I am comfortable making that motion because we're authorizing you to prepare documents that will come back to this board, correct?
Correct.
Of an investment policy and a contractual arrangement.
Correct.
Then I would make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it. And I think, Ernest, that it's an expedient way to go. I think that if we're gonna do this, we should do it quickly because it's to our advantage to do it quickly. So why not do it all at the same time? We can approve the investment policy that they would then abide by and
What's
invest.
the difference between doing two separate resolutions?
I
At
think that
the
was my
same
question
time.
at the beginning is what.
We can, we certainly could.
So I would motion for one or for two, but I assumed even if we motion the way we did for two in the same resolution, that we don't have to approve both,
See, that's,
correct? Or do we?
You do.
we do.
We do, if it's one resolution, it will include all of that information. If you'd like it to make it two resolutions, which I certainly don't object to, we can do it that.
Thank you for clarifying. I did not understand that, and so I would like to amend my motion to one motion for the resolution to prepare a resolution for the investment policy, a second motion to prepare a resolution for contractually committing to Dana.
Okay.
That's my point. Thank you.
And I think, Ken, you had seconded, so you're okay with the revised?
Yes.
Okay.
6-1.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I guess I was on the fence about this, and I was even going to volunteer to oversee the investment in treasuries going forward. The more I thought about it and listening to all of this and the committee recommendation, I guess I'm willing to support it for the primary reason of you'll have a professional company managing it all. I guess of the opinion that under that management, we'll be better off and we'll recover our costs by their watching over it more closely than any individual would from the board or the community. And you've got that consistency. We probably lost a lot of momentum and opportunity when the prior investment approach basically faded away. So this would give that continuity to it. And in the long run, we'll be as well off, if not better off. So I'm willing to support it for those reasons.
Any other comments? Can we call the vote?
All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Motion carries 4 in
Forward.
favor, 1 against.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys coming down and the presentation that you gave today. Jerry, thank you. Mark? Is Mark still here? Thank you very much for your explanations.
And board members, I'll work with Belinda to make sure her Rosetta's needs are addressed as well, with the goal to have both these resolutions for your January 23rd meeting.
There were 2 motions,
Two resolutions.
2 resolutions.
Yes.
One was an investment policy, and one was.
It was one motion to create 2
I see.
resolutions.
Okay, got it.
Yes.
Fair enough.
And I will bring 2 resolutions to this board on January 23rd.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you. So we're going to move on with staff reports. Rick, do you have anything to report?
Okay, as Keith pointed out, the asphalt vendor will be here tomorrow. He's gonna replace the 3-speed cushions in each location with full asphalt. So that should be done starting tomorrow. He hopes to get it done in one day. If not, he'll be back again the following day.
It's going to affect traffic in any way, just a little bit?
That road is 30 foot wide, so it'll be minimal. They'll have the alignment out there, but it's going to be minimal. But yeah, that's a good point. If you wanted to let the community know that they could come up the other way to bypass that if they're coming here. Okay. One of the residents spoke about the stop signs at the circle here. A few years ago, that was brought up, and one of the things, two of the challenges we had, there was a lot of vegetation blocking the view, so that would have to have been stripped down, and that has happened. We still have quite a bit of the elevation in the middle of that, so that's still the other option. The other obstacle was the elevation and then the visibility. Visibility isn't bad right now, so if you did want to consider that, we could look at that again. We would definitely need to change the signage and have the appropriate signage for the yields, the striping, and all that. So if that's something you want to consider, you could look at that too.
That's something that we had, as you say, we had spoken about that years ago. To have a stop sign in a circle, my own opinion is it's not a good idea. The reality is most people go through it anyway. But I think a yield sign would be much more appropriate in that area. You don't necessarily stop in circles unless traffic is coming.
We do have the crosswalk right on the west side of that, but still, we could sign that adequately too.
So my opinion is we should replace it with yield signs.
Okay, let me dig back through what I had and I'll bring it back to you guys.
Thank you.
The pond repairs, the fellow told me he was out here Friday to finish up. I've not been out there to look, so I was gonna go check it out to see the two ponds up off of Bella Vista and one pond down here on the southeast. So I'll look at them.
What about that pond that was mentioned on Padova?
I'm
not familiar with it, but
I was gonna try to figure out which pond which one that was. Those ponds up in the northwest seem to fluctuate the most. I know whenever they were doing that development to the west, there's a sand layer. Whenever they were doing their deep watering, the sand layer just let the water go on through. The north side, when they were digging all that, the sand layer just let that go all the way through. But right now there is no dewatering going on. So, but I have to figure out which one that was. I'm not sure who made that comment.
it was Ruth Quarter. She's not here right now, but I can reach out to her to find out where that pond is, and I'll tell you.
Okay. Let me pass out. At the last meeting, I was asked to go look at the 511 Padova. This was the spot regarding the resident was asking us to restore the bank, and so I went out there to look, and it looks like the resident, I mean, for one, there was no erosion out there to speak of. Where'd Keith go? Okay.
There was no erosion to speak of, and then the rocks, you could see on the first page on the top, there's a row of rocks on both sides of the house to basically stop any equipment to go through. The first page, because this come up back in January of 2020, and that's the picture that it looked like back at that time versus last month. So those are the two there. The second page is more details of that. So it looks like they were going to extend a drainage pipe down the slope. That's what that pipe appears to be like for out there. So, okay. So anyway, but you asked me to bring back some prices to fix erosion or stabilize the bank. That it doesn't need that.
Does it? Okay. Actually, it looks much better.
And I guess my only comment to the board is what he has done is on your property. If you're okay with that, I mean, that'd be your call.
Is it gonna create any other problem?
It's just limiting the access to go behind that house. And that's really all. The access would probably be mostly for LMP, and I don't know if there's the issue with you guys getting through there.
I just have to go down. I just have to go back, turn back around, go back down to the big open.
And that, to me, that's the
Which was
only
the goal,
thing.
right?
Yeah, that was the goal.
That was the goal. So they weren't constantly running over that area, right?
Correct.
Correct.
I'm good.
Okay. Okay, and then the last thing I had is we had the felt weights with my hearing last week, and the judge said he'll give his decision in 20 days. And I wanted to add anything to that, but overall, it went well.
It was the best 5.5 hours I spent.
Can I just ask about that? How do we find out, how do we hear what the judge's decision is on the Swift one thing? But how do we hear, we'll hear about it from you, I guess, at the meeting on the 23rd?
I'm not exactly sure. Andy?
Well,
how that
I'm
works?
not handling it, but I assume that the judge is gonna issue an order.
Right.
And once you're in receipt of that order, Belinda could send it to the board members.
That'd be handy, yeah.
Absolutely.
Just as an aside to that, I am meeting with the parties involved sometime this week, very likely tomorrow, in an attempt to come to a compromise that will be agreeable to everybody. So I'll keep the board aware and you aware as well as to the outcome of that.
There's nothing else for me. I'll give the mic back and.
Thanks, Rick.
Any questions for Rick? No? Andy, do you have anything to report?
Yeah, just
an update. We were busy during the month of December finalizing the VESTA contract. So it is finalized. We got a lot of input from your bond/tax council. Got comfortable with the provisions in there. It has been executed by VESTA. It's executed by the chair. I think we're just waiting on an additional signature from Belinda, and we can send a copy out to all the board members so you can have a copy of that. Related to that, we are not a party to it, but VESTA is negotiating their contract with Tennis Connection, and VESTA's attorney provided that to me, as well as our tax bond counsel for input, and we provided our input there. I'm actually not sure whether they have it fully signed up yet, but Ginger's giving me a thumbs up, so I believe that it is signed. So both of those are done. That is the only item to update on, but I'm glad to try and answer any questions.
I had a question.
Yes.
And I spoke with Jill about it before. I just want to ensure that Jill sends out a very nice update on board activities. And I just want to ensure that we are in no way violating sunshine laws by what she's doing.
I think that Jill is free to send out an update, not an issue, as long as board members, don't reply and provide, get engaged in any type of conversation, whether it's through email or in person. I've seen that update, so I do think that it needs to, which it does, say that it is not the official CDD newsletter, since we have one of those as well, and that it's, your thoughts and your own project with regards to informing the community. And with that disclaimer, I don't see any legal barrier to it.
The question that we both had is, through what email address should she send this? Should she send it through the CDD email, or should she send it through her own email, a private email? Now, we discussed this, and she's not sure, and I'm not sure, but that's where I was wondering if.
No, we didn't discuss
it. We did discuss this. You did discuss. We transferred thoughts about this.
Well, the meeting had started, Ernest.
It actually is. It was when you were talking.
Don't cause trouble.
We discussed it.
If you're doing it, even though it's not the official CDD newsletter, I do think that you're doing it in your role as a CDD board member, and I think it should come from the CDD email address so that we have a public record of it, so that if there is ever a public records request for it, that Belinda is able to provide it.
So can I just, go ahead.
Well, I have another question then.
Yeah.
So if it comes from the CDD email address, should it go to the entire community? Because I don't think your email goes to the whole community, right?
It doesn't, because it started organically, and it's just like to my friends, right?
Right, so that's, if it's coming from your CDD email, I wonder, does it need a different distribution? That's my only question.
I have no problem with that either. It's fine with me.
But we don't have a CDD, do we have a CDD email list?
Well, the newsletter. When
True.
I was doing the newsletter,
True.
I would
True.
get it to Keith.
Yes.
And Jill's gonna do the same thing that way.
Well, I have a suggestion, can I borrow that? I mean, thanks, to Cheryl's point, a suggestion let me get to one quick thing first. So currently I've been sending it from my CDD email address, and it's the way the platform I use, it comes back to my CDD. Any replies, if Darlene emails me and says,
Nice.
X, Y, Z, it comes, so in other words, that is self-contained, but what we could do, a suggestion would be to email, we could email to the CDD list and say this informal, thing is available. It's not official, but if you want to sign up for it, here's Supervisor Pizarro's email, and that way if people want to get on it, they could. That's rather than spamming everybody. So
you're gonna write 2 letters?
Yeah,
then?
that's my next question.
Yeah.
Why don't we just do one? Is there a need for 2?
Because you send it to me and I send it out on constant contact to the community.
I mean, is there a need for 2 separate
maybe
ones?
there's not.
In terms of this and the newsletter?
Right, why not just be the CDD newsletter?
How often does the newsletter go out?
It was,
every other month, right?
but it was going,
Personalizes her.
yeah, it was going 6 times a year, but I think remembering what Jill said a month ago when we had a meeting, would it be okay to do it monthly? Now, if she's willing to take on that extra task of doing it monthly, I applaud you again for doing that. That would be great. Sure.
Why not just have a monthly newsletter that's drafted by you, it's the official one, and it comes out on the CDD email address?
But suppose we don't agree to what she's advocating or sets forth in the email.
Well, it's always, as in the past, it's been sent to you board members to provide any revisions at the meeting.
None of that would
Now it's
change.
defeating the purpose of why she sends it out.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm actually sending out four emails a month, right? 2 for
Okay.
each board meeting.
Okay.
One is, here's what you should look out for at the next board meeting. And then the follow-up, which I'll write probably tomorrow, is here's, a snapshot of what what happened at the meeting. So it's very, very informal. So I have no problem with, working on the newsletter. We can talk about whether it should be monthly or bi-monthly. But
But
I
you want
come
to
back
do
to
more
the-
than just a monthly newsletter, it sounds like.
yeah, it's been going on for 2.5 years.
She's been doing that.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of,
I'd advocate not to change anything other than to make available if people do want to, and I've told people spread it around, and you can subscribe at the bottom of the email. So if, Sally sends it to Fred, Fred can just subscribe. It's very easy.
I think that would be fine. I have one request, and that would be that the supervisors all be included on the email, because I don't get it.
And it's a sunshine violation.
you have to sign up.
No, you can, you just can't
I can?
respond.
Oh,
I
all
can't
right,
respond to
okay.
you.
We can get it.
Say,
Okay.
But that way, at least all the supervisors are aware of what's being sent out.
Sure.
They can follow
I-
email.
yeah.
That's my only
Sure.
concern.
I'll suggest that if you're gonna continue to do both, that when the first newsletter that comes out, that you include something in there that says, I do a synopsis, thank you. A synopsis of the board report. If you'd like to be on that mailing list, respond.
Okay.
So include that as an item in the newsletter, and that way, it's out to the whole community. For those people who want it, you'll get a flood of emails that say, put my name on your list. Does that work?
Sure, absolutely.
And to answer the first question, I think this all should be coming from your CDD email.
Okay.
Okay, and to add the supervisors, their CDD emails? Or
Yes.
yeah, okay.
Okay, I'm not a lawyer,
But
however,
But you stated how it answers for that.
I play one at home.
How's that go?
So here's
Overruled a lot.
I do too. So here's my concern about all of that. In the past, when the newsletter has gone out, we get it in advance. We get to get comments on it, edit, whatever, suggestions, and then it goes out. Jill's been doing this for a long time on her own. I happen to receive it. I think it's great. Personally, I think she should continue to do it on her own, under her own email, so it's not a CDD publication, if you would. And kind of leave it the way it's been, but maybe there's a way to ask people if they want to subscribe. I would not put Todd Myers on it, but other than that. Because now we start convoluting what's a publication from the board versus her synopsis
Well,
of
I mean, I do
achievement
think-
at the meeting.
I do think that, as we said, it should have the disclaimer in it.
yes, that's where.
Which it does.
Which it does.
Yeah.
So, it has the disclaimer in it. It says, I'm Jill, this is not the CDD newsletter. There will be one of those this month too, whatever. These are my thoughts. With that disclaimer, I think it's better to be on the CDD email address because we're able to track the records better.
Well, she may not want that. I can receive your email, and I see no problems with it because I don't respond or anything, but I'm informed as to what your thinking is.
Right, no,
as a
I'm not
result.
saying to stop
And,
sending them.
I just don't see the necessity of putting it on the CDD and let her.
Putting it on the CD
Oh,
email?
email.
Well, that was part of the discussion that we did have.
I can copy the CD, I can put my CDD email on as a recipient,
Yes.
and that might solve the problem.
Until all of us decide to issue similar.
Well,
This
here-
goes to 200 my.
There's already
closest friends.
comments going around the
So
community
it's-
about the POA.
Yeah, so.
And
Fair enough.
individual newsletters going out and to everybody who
Yeah.
does or doesn't want to get them. My only concern is, and I think you do a great job of just summarizing what took place, not editorializing on it,
Right.
which is great.
Right.
I don't know, it's a proliferation of individual board member commentary. And I think it's giving in the POA's case, my personal opinion is, it's not healthy for them or the community.
What Jill does
Oh,
is
yeah.
in no way related to what we're currently seeing coming from the POA.
And I appreciate that.
It's not, all it is, and you use the word.
And I get it,
everything,
and I
synopsis.
get her emails, and I think they were very helpful.
It's down to the email address it comes from. So if it comes from my personal email, does that put my personal email at risk from, because what I could do is
Absolutely.
set up,
That
you
was my
know,
concern.
I could set up a new email address, which is jillsblog@gmail.com. And that way it isn't cross-fertilized with, you know, all of my home shopping network emails.
You could. That was one of my concerns, yes. Is
So-
that,
Okay, so Andy, you're fine with it coming from her CDD email?
yes,
You see no,
as long as it has a
Potential issue.
disclaimer in it, I do not have a problem coming from a CDD email. If you don't, for whatever reasons from hearing you don't want it to come from the CDD email, Jill, you want to create jillsblog@gmail.com and send it to others, I would say make sure Belinda gets copied, and that might be okay.
but not blast it out to everybody. They need to subscribe to it, basically.
Right, so then the only people that will get it are the people who want it, and that
Right.
avoids comments like I'm being inundated with emails and why am I getting this stuff? That's fine,
So then I'm gonna set up a new email address.
it's your choice,
No.
Andy says it's your
Okay.
call.
My
Whatever-
concern,
whatever you
that was
choose.
definitely one of my
I prefer
concerns.
I prefer to do it from the CDD email address, and I could, in the subject line, say, this is Jill's blog, in caps.
I'm just not comfortable. It's just,
What do you want?
well, I just think it should remain the same as you currently do.
Okay.
Because my next question to you is, I would like to know, talk about director's insurance
You have it.
coverage. Okay, I just want to know the full extent of it.
Belinda will have to tell you
because-
what the limit is.
Yeah, I would like to know the limits and things like that, because things like that going on and out, you know, it could expose all of us to liability. Okay,
That was my first question.
the liability is there.
All right, so I'm gonna keep it as is, and then in the newsletter, I'm gonna say if you want to subscribe.
I have one question though, just for you, because it's my understanding that you now then subject your entire personal email to
Scrutiny.
scrutiny.
You could,
That's
yes.
right.
Because you are an officer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that way your home shopping network is gonna be.
Yep, you'll know what you're
It's
buying.
gonna be out there.
Well,
That
if
would
I
be
do
my
it-
only concern.
If I do it
were
for
you.
my but if I do it for my CDD email, then I'm fine.
But I'm hearing that some board members might not want that.
Yeah, I don't know.
And so
So you could
you would
create a
solve it by
separate-
Jill's blog.
Right.
Do a separate email from Jill's blog.
That's
and
fine
that
with
way
me,
you know-
I don't mind.
And only use it for that.
Okay, sorry, guys.
Buy your HA send stuff on
But I
something
want to
else.
be on it.
All right. All right, I can make that happen. Sorry.
No, it was something that needed to
No,
be,
it did, yeah.
it was something that needed to be discussed, because no one wants to be in danger of violating sunshine laws, then we're all
Exactly.
in the middle.
In the Dutch.
Okay,
Okay.
we can go.
Any other questions for Andy?
Another simple question.
Jeff, do you have anything to report?
Yes. I have addressed, excuse me, the key financial indicators in the report that I submitted to the board. And I'll be happy to address any questions or comments that anybody has related to it. I will address the fact that year-to-date, as of the end of November, we are reflecting a $14,600 improvement against budget. December monthly highlights. I'd like to mention that we have requested suggestions from the committees for assistance and suggested questions to be included in the upcoming
member survey that we are working on, that Vesta is working on to submit to the membership in the not too distant future. And we will be going back to the committees to request a bit more specific information as opposed to some of the generalized comments that we have received. Moving forward, Dave Freeman of Tennis Connections coordinated the laser grading and resurfacing project of the River Club's tennis courts, resulting in exceptional quality playing surfaces. We've implemented, as I've mentioned previously, a new catering policy introduction to include policies and fee schedules to be included in all banquet and catering contracts. We plan over the next 60 days to revisit all of our catering, food and beverage menus and price points so that we can proceed with the board's guidance to move forward to ensure that we are in fact booking quality events that will bring an appropriate level of revenue, income to the bottom line. As far as events are concerned, our holiday dinner dance was attended by 171 members, generating roughly $12,000 in food and beverage revenues. The event was highly acclaimed by those in attendance, citing exceptional food, service, decor elements, and entertainment. Breakfast with Santa was a resounding success, attended by 142 members, producing $2,036 in food and beverage sales. The New Year's Eve Gala, although more lightly attended than we would have liked, reported 60 covers, generating $9,155 in food and beverage revenues. The event was widely appreciated by those in attendance, citing again exceptional food, service, decor elements, and entertainment. I am very happy to report that the soft opening, or not so soft opening, of the new Tiki Hut last Friday night was applauded as a tremendous success. My estimates are that the event was attended by approximately 250 members and guests, generating $929 in food sales and $2,400 in beverage sales. I've been requested to mention that we managed the opening critical path, and it was tremendously time-consuming, requiring great attention to detail, but I'm very pleased with the success of the opening. We do plan on featuring entertainment at the Tiki every Friday evening, and we hope to be able to generate continued enthusiasm in the Tiki and the operations. And we would love to see attendance that is comparable or even remotely comparable to what we've seen over this past weekend. The event schedule includes the expansion of Thursday night community night theme dinners to include 112 Italian night, 119 Greek night, 126, we're going to revisit the cheeseburger and paradise theme. On 22 Italian night, 29 Flamingo Luau. On 216 prime rib night. We're going to be featuring a Mardi Gras event on the 23rd of February. Our signature events for the next couple of months will include January 14th, Dance the Night Away. The 25th, Chef Brian is going to be featuring a seafood cooking class. It's going to be very limited in available attendance. The 27th, a happy hour all-nighter, which could run perhaps as late as 9 o'clock. The 9th of February, a high tea, reflecting back to my Greenbrier misspent days. The 11th of February, which is a Saturday night, will be featuring our Valentine's dinner dance. And on the 29th, we'll be repeating a trivia night. Be happy to respond to any questions that anyone may have.
Jeff, do you have any idea of profitability for the holiday dinner dance or the New Year's Eve gala?
I have not had an opportunity to do a reconciliation on those, but I plan to work on that this coming week.
Okay, and then one other question, we had talked about a 6-month review of profitability on external private events. Can you give us a status on that?
We have prepared 5 reconciliations to date. There have been an awful lot of demands upon our time. The results indicate that on the sampling of events, of non-member banquets have not been especially successful, many of which were break even or very minimal net income to the club. We do plan on moving forward to continue to complete the balance of those reconciliations, and we'll report those. I have provided Mr. Smaha copies of the 5 reconciliations that have been completed to date. We had some conversation on that this morning, and we recognize that going forward, depending upon the board's guidance, of course, as to policies, we need to be very selective in both the revenue possibilities of events that we will consider for acceptance, and also the net that is brought to the bottom line.
So with that, I think our moratorium on outside private event booking ends with this meeting. So we probably need to extend that at least until the next meeting, if not longer, depending upon what the board thinks. I think, Ernest, that was your desire in the first place.
That's
was to
correct.
make it longer. So how long, the question is, how long do we go?
Well, do you feel you'll have the information available by the 23rd, Jeff? Well, prior to that, so that we can review it?
I would think that it's probably going to take 30 days for us to complete this, sir.
Let's go to March 1st.
Yeah, because we would be looking for not only the profitability analysis, but also the proposal, right? You don't want to open it up until you know what you want to charge. So how long will it take to have all of that?
I would request another 30 days.
Okay, so let's look at March 1st.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good?
Yes, I'm satisfied.
Do we need a resolution? on that?
Realistic?
A motion
Let's
on that?
not do it if it's not realistic.
I move that we extend the moratorium on private events until March 1st.
Is there a second?
I'll second that. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like that question answered because we may want to extend it longer.
Yeah.
Based on what I've seen, I would vote to not do any more at all based on what I've seen.
I agree.
It's horrendous. So I think they ought to take the time and do it right and give us the best information available to make a decision. I'm just concerned, Jeff, that we're gonna press you into a time limit that's not realistic. Look how long it took to get these 5.
I agree with that, and I would appreciate any latitude that you can provide to us. It's time consuming. We are, and I don't want to make excuses, but we're in the middle of season, and there's a lot of demands upon both Julie's and my time.
Is April 1st more conducive to getting that done?
I would just ask, is it smarter to say, if we're gonna do events going forward, if we're gonna do events going forward, this is the guideline we're gonna do events going forward with, meaning what we've done historically, Ken has seen it, I would have to agree that it's probably break even at the best, no matter what event it is. Right now, for the next 6 months, we have 11 outside events booked, 11. And 3 of those are weddings. I can't sit here and tell you whatever the contract is for that wedding, what it is. I personally did the one for April and did it based on what I know would be profitable event, at least to the 8%. We're not giving out, we're not booking anything, so it really is more relative going forward. Yes, historically, things weren't charged properly, things like that, and we can give you the reconciliations and performers all day long. It's more important, if you wanna move ahead, you'll dictate to us, we wanna make sure it's whatever it is, 8% to the bottom line, and that's industry standard, starts at like 8% and goes up to 15%, if you wanna move forward. So that is probably the bigger question of, if we move forward, what are the guidelines we're gonna use to be profitable then, and to make it worth the while?
And that's why I requested both the analysis of what's happened in the past, which apparently we have part of, and secondly, what's the proposal for going forward? Because I don't think we should open the moratorium until we know that we can definitely be profitable, and, then you get what you get, right? And if people don't want to pay it, that's fine, but we shouldn't be at risk for people's private events.
Understood.
So,
We agree.
March 1st, April 1st, what do you need?
April 1st.
What's that?
April 1st.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask the question, I'd rather see you spend the time forward-looking, because we know you can do 10 more of these, and I think the answer is gonna be about the same.
Yeah,
And if you happen to get a couple that are profitable, gee, that's great, but so what?
Just publish those, but I think the only thing with ones that might have been profitable is, does that give you any baseline for how you're gonna charge in the future? Or do you already have that formula? You just need to
Well, they
propose
should.
it.
Well,
Because these are historical. But I'm saying going forward, what we want them to come back with is a policy and the pricing that would get them to that bottom line. Otherwise, don't bother to have the event.
Absolutely. And be known as the venue that is not a bargain venue, right? You're gonna come to this high-end facility, we wanna look in your face and the rest of the residents and say, this was a value, because yes, we were able to bring $8,000 to the bottom line to maintain the building and to improve the building as well. Though there could be some stipulations, so if the board says, let's stipulate though, only 2 Saturdays a month, we can provide that for you, is give you some ideas for stipulations that you could put on renting the facility, but we shouldn't be known as the bargain facility. It's a beautiful facility, it's great parking, all that stuff.
Right.
And I think that if we change the perception of what's out in the industry, that will be very important, so, okay.
And I'm fine with, that's fine. But do you have as long as you have the data you need to make the proposal, if you can do the proposal by March 1st, that's great. I mean.
We've already prepared the catering policies and the fee structure for supplemental fees, for room rentals, et cetera, for ancillary services. None of those fees have been incorporated historically. And so we have developed a plan to that extent. We also have to go back and review and actually introduce and refresh our banquet menu offerings to be appropriate and certainly cost out and extend the selling prices for all of the services, both for food and beverage. So we can certainly accomplish that by the April 1st deadline.
And just to give you a guideline, this is from industry standard from myself and Jeff. He's got a lot of club situation. I just came 5 years from a yacht club that we didn't do any event. We started off, it was the same situation, started off being the bargain place, right? Right on the water in Tampa. It should never have did that. It should never have been like that. But after 5 years, probably after 1 year moving on, we became known as the more destination. And you would have to have, it's not a DIY place, it's, destination of doing higher scale event, let's put it that way, if that makes sense.
I just want to add one thing here, which is, I think it gives us time, and I encourage this board, we also need to have a discussion about what it is we are. we're also not a high-end wedding mill. We're here for the residents, so maybe this gives us time in connection with the survey, to find out what residents want, because maybe residents want to use the club more often. So I think that has to weigh into the final decision, not only profitability.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Well, right now, the motion on the floor is March, and we've heard April batted around, so I'm not sure which one the board wants to
Want to
utilize.
amend it?
I would amend my motion
April?
to April 1st.
Okay.
Yes.
Who was the second?
Ken?
It wasn't me, but I'll.
No, I'm
second
sorry, it was Rich.
It was
It was
me.
Rich.
It
That's
was
fine.
Rich.
Yes, gotcha. Any other discussion on that? Can we vote on it?
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, so April 1st.
We are coming up on the 2-hour mark. Does anybody need a break?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, we should.
We could do it.
Let's do it.
So before we go on a break, we're gonna move forward with, we're gonna start with we do have the landscape inspection report. John Fowler's here as well as John Toborg. So John, do you want to give the board an overview on the inspection report?
Thank you.
The spacer.
All right, just make this quick for you. I did an inspection with LMP, right before the holidays, December 16th. Just gonna highlight some things that I saw throughout this community and, things that I think that we need to take care of, mostly detail work. Number 2 and 7, those 2 items on there. And in front of your clubhouse, you have drip line that's everywhere that is exposed, being removed, plants, things like that. I would like them to at least get them out of the shrubs and keep them pinned down because it's unsightly as you walk into the club. I do understand you guys are still gonna put new plants in, but at least have that because it also is a trip hazard too as you're walking through. Some people walk in the parking lot, there's some exposed there as well. Number 15, 33, and 38, I believe all of them have photos, but there are a few turf issues out there that just need to be rectified, whether it's irrigation or some kind of fungus or bug. They just need to make sure that they attend to that and keep that up to date. 39 and 60, these are the lift stations that we continue to talk about. Just need to get those better detailed, clean those up better. The last page, something that we've talked about over and over is Venetian berm. I did drive by there this morning and it has been pruned up. Definitely looks a lot better and they have treated all the weeds. And I'm gonna have an inspection with him soon, but we'll talk about what we do with those weeds now that they've died out because the next step is to at least remove all that dead material. And then the final thing that needs to be on the radar that you can see throughout the community is just the palm pruning. Hanging palm fronds basically everywhere from the hurricane and something that needs to be taken care of.
Any questions for John? Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Do we want to move into item number 5D, which is the consideration of the LMP proposals for post-hurricane recovery completion items? These are behind tab number 3. Or do
We're gonna take that break.
Okay, so why don't we take a 10-minute break at
And we'll
11:30
pick up-
a.m.
We'll pick up with item D when we come back.
So bad, it's so bad. Why am I blanking? Oh, seriously.
No, I think you have more coverage.
Oh my God, just give me your, Okay, this is sound. You got it. Sorry, my hands are frozen. It's freezing. Well, it's complicated. It's very complicated.
And we've got a large area already done. We are clearing an area outside of the long.
It is freezing in here.
I don't know if
Well, I thought it was technically there's AC showers. But I also, you know,
and I'm thinking that
because of CDD.
those areas where always been makes sense, but probably not in the other areas.
So anybody
Because
can
as I
change.
work through there, it's not as nice. So I think that I need to
yeah, I mean, the only change I had, I just early on.
Well, yeah, it's CDD I wanted to do that provider because the CDD. No, it's okay, you're good. Which is very atypical for CDDs in the state of Florida.
And
Usually just demonstration like. It is fascinating. Yeah, good. Well, we're gonna replicate Be careful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I know storm right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we're gonna. I would just.
I will.
Oh. Well, that's, right, that's the next question.
Yeah, sounds good. So I'm just waiting.
She does.
We are, I took that to be, I did all this work, why is somebody else taking it?
Anyway, it did stuff. Okay.
Did you want to take it all or? Because I didn't come right back here. Right back.
Before I'm done here.
I've been working on showers pretty much every day.
I don't know, it's here, somewhere. I don't know what I did.
So hopefully,
I don't know what that is. Trying to just,
Hi, you guys, how are you? I mean, I was sitting over here and I'm looking up here. Big branch, you know, where's it? I couldn't figure it out. Any connected. And it comes out.
They categorize everything has to, everything has to. Yeah. So Mark,
But,
and you have to provide GPS coordinates and location.
Oh,
yeah. So I put together. You know, because I went through, I had to say, addresses. But you have to see it, which is fine,
So
they're getting it traded. It's like a stock.
And so he takes it, but he says that definitely has. So he took out the cash. I did have yeah, they were out here. So hopefully.
You know,
Thanks so much.
So we have to provide that in a separate Excel worksheet. They wanted it in the schedule, but there's something different. They're saying, no, but put it as a total in the schedule, and then just provide a separate worksheet with the address.
I agree.
The sales.
Okay. I know, I saw it walking the other day.
That's what driving down, driving. Versus, you know, what kind of things you'll set. So right now,
But as you walk in, you know, in the green,
so now how do you?
I saw the other day, I stood there and read it.
Oh, I saw it was.
There was something food in there. Yeah.
Well, you know, the way that they, from what I understood.
Well, it may not be there now, you know.
As possible, but they want to be sure that you provide them with information and you have everything. You have 60 days when they can meet with them to provide this information, which is
And then he has to back.
so if you don't have the information provided to them, they can't send out inspectors. And if they send out inspectors, then they're going to pretty much detail they post not what you're showing them your damages are. Yeah.
So I'm gonna miss the 23rd meeting.
That's right. You would think, No, and then their categories are different, their percentages of pages of specific things are different. There's different ways that they approach things, so, you know, on the category level, I was kind of blindsided by the whole, well, if you work with your quality tree, you don't put that in the same category.
I can't look at it.
Exactly, so if you, for example, you had a reserve work done, reserve work that goes into
I rely on you.
there's irrigation goes into a separate category too, so there's all sorts of categories that we have. And it wasn't until they sat down with us and broke it down that we realized, wow, this is interesting for us that are going through the learning curve of it, but it's a lot.
They are. Now, some of this has to be covered by. The So they're in there in order. I'm glad to see you feeling better and everything else. Here we were.
Somebody's gonna cut it in half.
This one up here.
Your husband and I were having this argument time. Did you leave him here? The other night? Yeah. Yeah. I was like, of course you were, because he was dancing, we were doing like high fives. He was like swinging partner round and round.
Yeah, no, he's a nice guy.
You're like, I'm going home. Well, he definitely had a good
Still waiting.
I don't know what it is on there. Either small losses.
So it's in here, 33,000, but not.
We all set, Linda?
I think we have Jill, Jeff, are we ready?
Ladies and gentlemen, if you could get your seat, please. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. As a reminder, if you have your cell phone turned on, please make sure that it's on silent throughout the duration of the meeting. Okay. And we are back on the record at 11:46 a.m. Supervisors, we do have LMP present, and we do have item number 5D, which is the consideration of the LMP proposals for post-hurricane recovery completion items. These are behind tab number 3 for your review. If the board will recall, at the last meeting, we did direct LMP to move forward to provide the district with estimates for completion of post-hurricane recovery items that are pending. They have provided their estimates, which I have reviewed. Keith, do you want to give the board an overview on these?
The main one is the grinding of the stumps. That looked like to me it was way out of the park price-wise. So I've priced it out and had a couple bids, and I can get it done for about $8,700. So, and that being said, I'm looking at, maybe outsourcing some of that other on there as well. There is a lot of stuff that, around the wetlands and those type of things that has to be done. But I don't know if you want me to move forward and get that estimated down as well. LMP has been, right there with us, and they've worked hard for us, but now it's time to, okay, move forward and because the pricing is just, I think is just a little bit much. Yes, sir.
Keith, the $35 an hour labor fee, is that consistent with their contract?
I don't know, John?
I did not bring in their contract link.
It is.
It is.
So they have a storm cleanup cost as part of their agreement. It does match. Now, the supervisory cost, that's not part of your storm cleanup cost. This was charged by LMP for the staff that they had on site overseeing the work. I'll touch a little bit more on FEMA items during my report. I have to agree with Keith. I do think some of this pricing is excessive, and we should probably at this point maybe obtain bids from other companies and outsource the work. LMP should be focused at this point on the maintenance and on proposals for replacements working alongside the landscaping company for future consideration by the board, unless there's any disagreements by the members of the board.
I have no disagreement. I was kind of surprised to see a $6,100 charge for filling holes. Does that come from trees being removed?
Yes, that's, the root balls all came out of 135 trees, I believe is what it was. And those holes need to be, some dirt filled back in there. Most of that cost, I think, is the actual dirt and of course the labor to do it.
Me just assuming that if a tree is taken out, they're gonna fill the hole. And I know what happens when you assume, and maybe that's exactly what's happened here. But I would have assumed if we were charged to have the tree removed, that the landscape would be restored to what it was as a part of that. but that's not the case, obviously.
No, and the main price, I think, is for the dirt.
Yeah, sod and soil. I mean, if you can remember, I know it's easy to forget already, but we've all seen the size of those stumps, the root balls that were along the boardwalk out there. Those are some massive holes. I mean, they were, 6 feet deep.
And so we're gonna sod them and re-dirt it, but,
What about the haul-away? The haul-away, it's a $20,050, a $20,050 charge for haul away and dispose of all stump debris along Benito Boulevard and Lower Road.
yeah,
I
that
thought
bill
FEMA
should not be in there, because
Okay.
that was done by.
That was done by FEMA.
That was done by FEMA and was, so that's not a bill that we will be paying.
Okay,
Is that the 20,000?
Yes.
$20.50.
So
So when I saw that, I said, LMP didn't do it. Now, that was an accident on your part to.
Well, that was a proposal before, because remember FEMA wasn't showing up and the city was telling us, oh no, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. FEMA's gone. Oh, then Bill called me up one day and I think I turned cartwheels. I think I scared Jeff because I was turning cartwheels coming down the hallway that FEMA's here. And they were picking up stumps. So we got, that all the way for nothing.
Do we know who dumped, after all that was done, everything was cleaned up, who dumped a whole bunch of stuff out there right at Citadel Gate?
Yeah.
Well, I was going out there a week ago. I had to stop because there was a gentleman fishing with his kids at that pond right there and asked him to move on. He didn't see the sign that he was standing next to that said no trespassing. But there was a guy, he goes, what about that guy dumping out there? That can't be right. Oh, no. Because I didn't want to get another letter from, the city saying, hey, watch what you're doing. And it wasn't us. It was a landscape company. And he said, well, the HOA said we could dump over here. And I said, give me the name of that HOA. I'll get it picked up tomorrow. Well, you guys need to cease and desist on this because we're going to, see it anymore. We're going to have to call the police and have them come out and because it wasn't us. It wasn't the CDD. They never told anybody to dump out there.
My fear is that we're gonna get blamed for it because we were blamed for the other things and it wasn't all us either.
Yeah, that outside that gate was, outside the Citadel gate is not us.
Do you have the name of the landscaper?
I took a picture of his truck, yes.
Okay, thank you.
quick question on, sorry.
No.
Just a really quick question, because Bill's point about the holes is well taken. I know that there's at least one, because like a number of people, I walk around a lot. If there are any, I think, that are especially deep and a risk.
Don't jump in, Jill.
It's so tempting. I'm concerned about delaying filling those too long, I guess is what I would say. If there's any that it creates liability.
We should definitely mark them off or something.
Yes, exactly.
Most of them flagged?
No.
They
The
should
ones
be.
on Pissarro seem.
Exactly.
So the overall cost, I guess if we take the 20,000 out,
Take the
some of their
36,000
total is
out.
about 69,000.
Take that 36,000 out.
36,000.
Okay. Where I was going with the question is, we've already charged through November 76,000 on the P&L. So this was gonna bring us up to 140, 150, there'll be something less than that now. Is that a change from the 120 we thought originally? There was a preliminary estimate, or is that something different?
It's a lot higher, actually, because there's a lot of invoices that have not been paid that we are still reviewing. So I don't want to give you a final number, given that some of these invoices need to go back to LMP for further review and for further discussion. But I am estimating this is going to be probably over $200,000 alone in just debris removal. So there are things here that do not have to be done by LMP. For example, the preserve cleanup, you can have Earth Balance come out and give you a proposal for that work. The stump grinding, I cannot substantiate $275 per stump when some of these stumps are not large. So I appreciate the fact that LMP has taken the time to provide these estimates, but it's not something that I would recommend that you approve, given that Keith has 2 other proposals to do this work for no less.
$8,700.
Yeah.
Has any of this already been done already?
The stump removal has been, some of them been done, but the stump grinding, no.
And the staking?
The staking's been done.
So
Of
that
the palm
17,
trees.
that 17,800 will be billed to us?
I think it's already been built to us.
That, yeah, the tree staking proposal you guys might have is for most of the magnolia trees and stuff along the boulevard, some odds in it, ins and outs areas throughout, but we did the tree staking for the large jewels.
So this is
in the
additional.
cul-de-sacs.
That's additional.
Yeah, this is, yes.
But they've been done or not done?
No.
Not
No, okay. But the staking of the modules, that's already
Yes, that was
Been-
built out.
been built. Okay.
Yes.
This is other trees.
I don't know where these are. Just all over the place?
Yes.
Have you seen, they're so,
Oh, yeah, they need to be staked up or pulled.
yeah. Belinda, does all of this come under our FEMA application for reimbursement?
It does. I'm gonna go into a little bit more detail, during my report, because we did have a meeting with FEMA. It was mind-boggling considering, all the work that is to be done and the information that FEMA's requiring and the categories, that they have. So I will give a brief overview on that. On debris removal, anything that's removed offsite, as you know, because Keith attended the meeting with me, we do need to have, dump tickets and permit numbers for every single dump, and every single location. So whatever vendor has provided you with a proposal, they need to be aware of that because it is a requirement.
So Belinda, are you recommending that these 4 estimates that have not been completed be bid out?
Yes, that would be my recommendation to the board.
I'll support
He
that.
has 2 proposals currently for stump grinding. If there are any holes, obviously that are a hazard, Keith, then you should probably move forward and have those holes covered if they, represent any sort of, issue where someone could fall in or directly adjacent to a sidewalk where you could have an injury to a pet. Those need to all be evaluated and taken care of right away.
And the rest we're going to seek additional bids.
Yes, that would be my recommendation. Thank you. So John Tolbert is here. We are going to move forward with the review of the landscape and irrigation maintenance RFP. This is behind tab number 2 for your review. Good morning, John.
Good morning.
Hey, John.
Hi. You want me to just, well, I don't want you to feel in the back of my head, so I'm sitting right here.
By Belinda, she doesn't, she's not on the.
Thanks. I have answered a couple supervisors' questions, Joe Pozarek and I believe Mr. Smaha. I think I've addressed a couple of questions you've had. I have, also Andy had 3 to 5 items that he wanted me to add, mostly for the bid protest language for a bid protest bond, as well as some additional language. And that's all been done, and I've only printed out 1 copy of the second draft, which I have given to Andy so he could just follow up on that, make sure it was done correctly. But I will, if you have any questions or if you'd like to make any changes to this RFP, some of the items that typically do get discussed is, for instance, the evaluation criteria, reallocating the points. That's usually the first that the board goes to if they want to reallocate any of those points. And also if the entire board, and Andy can elaborate on this as well, if the entire board does not want to serve as the evaluation board or
Committees.
What's that?
Evaluation committee.
Committee, yes. If you want to assign maybe certain members, that is also a possibility. I've been involved in CDDs that's done that as well. So I'll be happy to sit and discuss this with you further or address any further questions you might have.
Let me just interrupt for a second just to say, John already referenced it, but I asked John to add some language, which we talked about at the last meeting with regards to protest bonds, if someone's going to file a protest. So that language is now in there. Also, just based on experience I have that have protested in another community, asked John to add some language, memorializing that price is not the only factor. So we did add that. Also added some language that to the extent of conflict between the terms of this manual and the district's operating rules, that the manual will prevail. That's another lesson I've learned through some other protests in other communities. So John was great in adding all of that language in. What he just referenced is, by and large, most CDDs have the board as the evaluation committee, but I do have some CDDs that have utilized a separate committee where you appoint 3 or 4, 5, whatever you decide, people to that committee. And that committee needs to meet in the sunshine, so we would advertise all their meetings and such. And then they would come and make a recommendation to you as the full board, and then you'd have the ability to accept their recommendation or, choose someone different. So that is an option that John's referring to.
As opposed to using the landscape committee.
Or the board.
For the board. Well,
You
why
could,
wouldn't you use, that's my question, I
You
guess.
could.
Being
You
new to this
could.
process? Would you use the landscape committee to vet this and then come back to the board with a recommendation, just like we do the finance committee with?
you could use the landscape committee. Again, we would advertise them. We would we put different hats on them. We would designate them as the evaluation committee for this landscape RFP. We would advertise their meetings accordingly in that regard. And then they would score the proposals. They would meet, they would score the proposals based on the criteria that we've established and then bring their recommendation to you. So you would not actually be doing the scoring, they would.
The committee has asked that they be put into that position, and it was kind of in between when Mr. McCaffrey was leaving and you were coming on, so it was, I think we had a time frame there that, but they want to be also involved in that, just like you were saying at the end of this, and then bring the recommendation to the board.
Well, Joe Spallina spoke at the last meeting, I believe, and he was putting that forth.
I will tell you, even though, like I said, that they would bring a recommendation to you, they would do the scoring and bring a recommendation to you. You would have the ability to say, no, we'd rather choose X than Y. But you would have to have good basis for making that decision, because they will have fully vetted the proposals, gone through, had meetings, gone through and evaluated them against the criteria and come up with a recommendation. So if your decision is to choose X instead of Y, you could, but we would have to fully document that on the record as to why you went in a different direction.
One concern, shouldn't say concern, but one thought I have on that is it's a very big number. And I think that the board has to have responsibility for that, and that's why I'm wondering, I think that the landscape committee should look at it, but I'm wondering how that process actually happens, so that ultimately the responsibility falls on the board.
Yeah, and I guess in my mind, I apologize.
No, go ahead.
In my mind, it's kind of, finance committee recommended the revision to the bonds, right? Paying off the bond. That was a huge
Yes.
financial issue, but the board liaison was involved. I was chairing the committee, and we made the recommendation to the board, who could ask us a million questions and actually not even agree with us. And that's what I thought the landscape committee would do at the same time. Now, I don't have a lot of experience with the landscape committee, so if it makes, okay, I have zero experience with the landscape committee, to be honest. So if it makes sense to even add someone else to the landscape committee, if they want to participate for this process, if you would rather have another board member, I'm not sure. I don't want to do what's inappropriate. Can't have another board member, sorry.
Right.
So what would be the advantage of having a separate committee then?
We can create sort of a hybrid where they're not the actual evaluators, that you stay the evaluator. So they're not an evaluation committee, but we could still give them the proposals, and they, could give you their input. They can meet in the sunshine, discuss it. They're not scoring them. They're just saying, hey, we think company A looks like they have a lot of experience, and we think company B does a good job at the community next door, or whatever. They could just come to you and give their input, and you'd still be the ultimate evaluators.
I think that's what they want.
That's what they
I mean,
want.
That's a great
Okay, so they don't want to be the evaluation committee. They just want to have an opportunity to review the proposals and give you some feedback, I'll call it.
I think
That's
they
the way
would
I
be
see it.
willing to be the evaluation committee, but I think there's some confusion about their authority. And I don't know that they understand that
They
would
don't have
just-
it right now, but we
Exactly.
could vest them with it
That
if
they
you
would
want
just,
it.
what if we, I'm concerned about setting up another committee. So what if we use landscape committee as the evaluation committee? Could we bring it to one of our workshops so we have more time to actually have a discussion? And that would involve all of the supervisors? And before we come to an actual meeting for a vote?
Well, I guess I'm a little confused here which direction we're going. Do we want the landscape committee to be the actual evaluation committee?
Yes.
To score it.
To score it, yes.
And if we do, then like I said, we need to redesignate them as the evaluation committee and advertise their meeting separately than what they already have as a landscape committee and work it into the RFP.
So could the landscape committee, they couldn't do the scoring at all, not even preliminarily, to send to the board of supervisors at a workshop?
No.
Okay.
They should
So
not be
the board
doing
of
that. That is
supervisors
not
would
their
have to do
role.
the scoring.
That is not their role.
Sorry, having that
Unless we
done.
designate them as such, which we could, but currently that is not their role.
Right.
Ken has his arm waving.
I do. I'm not ready to have the landscape committee be the evaluator on this. I agree with Jill. I think it's too important, too big a number. It affects the entire community. We need to take that responsibility. I do welcome their evaluation and comments on the proposals we get. I think that's very relevant. But ultimately, it needs to be us that makes that decision. You know, as John knows, I spent time reading this whole thing. I went with a whole bunch of questions to him. I've got more questions based on his responses that I'd like to ask as part of this conversation because it has to do with the RFP itself. But ultimately, this is one of the biggest contracts, if not the biggest, that we issue. And I think we should be the ones doing the final evaluation and measurement criteria.
I agree with that entirely, but I'd like to get input from I
Yeah.
agree with everything
Me
you
too.
said.
Well, with that, I don't mean to interrupt, but with that being said, I think that we would then just leave the structure. I realize you may have other changes, but leave the structure as John has prepared it. But when the proposals come in, at the same time that they're provided to you board members, we can provide them to the landscape committee.
Right.
They can have their meetings if they want and have
Yeah.
sunshine, of course, and then come to you on the day that you're going to be making your evaluations and say, just so you know, maybe they'll have, maybe it's the liaison or maybe it's the chair of the committee comes and says, these are some of our comments that you should take into account when you're doing your.
They
That sounds
present
fine.
their thoughts on it.
But they would not be doing the evaluating. They would not be a selection committee. We would leave the manual drafted as is.
That way, you don't have to advertise it, and it just becomes an agenda item.
Correct.
That works for me.
Then we do this scoring at a workshop or at one of our meetings?
You would do the scoring at, you would do it individually on your own, at home, I'll call it, and it'll be your homework. And then you will bring your score sheets with you to a meeting, full meeting. And then as a board, you'll have an opportunity to discuss. So Rich might say, hey, I gave company X 10 points here. And you'll say, oh, I only gave him 5 because I thought that whatever. So you'll do the work as homework. You'll bring it to the meeting. You'll have an opportunity to have a board discussion. Make any changes you want to make or leave your score sheet as is. You will then hand them to Belinda. And Belinda and John will score them right there and then announce the rankings.
Now, we'll also have an opportunity to meet with those that would like to meet with us.
If you'd like, yes.
In the past, I believe, past boards have usually whittled it down to 2 or 3.
Right.
For the next meeting for in-person interviews or
To
presentations.
have them come in.
That's right.
Now, how do we deal with, I assume LMP will submit an RFP, I assume it.
I assume.
How do we deal with section 23, with them on property and the cone of silence? Is there any potential problems there?
Well, they need to be aware of it, and they should not be contacting any board members. I don't know what takes place now. I don't believe probably that LNP talks to board members much. Probably most of the correspondence is through Keith or Belinda, I would assume, so.
And it's okay if it goes through Keith?
Well, again, they shouldn't be reaching out. There's an established process for this RFP. If you have a question about the RFP or anything about it, we've established a process where John is the point of contact, and then we issue addenda, and that's the way it should occur. Certainly, if it's something having to do with not even the RFP, day to day, should we be mowing this blade of grass? They'll continue to have their contact with Keith
I
about
think
that.
the last sentence in section 23 does basically just limit it to communications with this concerning this RFP.
Right.
I mean, they've got a contract in place that they need to communicate with us currently.
Okay.
Have there been any revisions to the dates that were in the original?
No.
Okay, so initial presentations are the 17th of February.
Okay, yeah, that's a mandatory pre-proposal meeting that I'll conduct here in
Okay,
this room.
and do all of the supervisors attend that?
No,
That is just you guys?
yeah.
Okay.
We will have run an advertisement in the local paper. And so it's a required RFP, so anybody can show up. They are required to attend that. I do take attendance. I record it just like you do here. And if they're not in attendance and they turn in a bid, we will not be able to accept their bid.
Then the bids must be submitted by March 8th?
Yes, March 8th. Now, here's the question. We've got 5 supervisors. I'm not sure how many folks are on the committee. If we want the committee to be able to review prior to, you all, I need to also have our vendors then, instead of giving us like 6 hard copies or 7 hard copies, if we want each member of the committee to have a copy too, I'll have to add that to it. So 5.
You should.
We should. Yep.
And then my last question is, it says the contract will be awarded within 14 days, which is not going to happen. So do we need to adjust that time frame?
Yes.
Okay.
We could just add language or is otherwise extended by the district. Or
Yeah,
something
and what I'll have to do here is find out the date for the committee and add that in here so that it's very clear what the process is going to be.
Talk about the RFP itself. So in my comments to John, one of them did have to do with the evaluation criteria. And I was questioning number 7, which basically said, after you've done all this, how do you really feel about it? Which allows you to give points to the reasonableness. And I thought your response was actually a good one. I had suggested taking those 15 points and reallocating them across numbers 1, 2, and 5. But I understand your point about variation of
low balls.
Yeah, so
pricing.
if I just quickly summarize, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and I don't disagree with it, by the way. My thought was, well, how do we as individual board members know that? Are you gonna tell us in a review session
Yes.
that, hey, this is how I see these things? and
After
this-
we
this
get
really then-
our bids in, we're gonna sit down and our work begins again. And we start breaking these bids out. You're gonna get like 3 different summaries from us. You're gonna get side-by-side comparisons of each bidder, their price for the general landscape maintenance, their price for fertilization. What others? 6 parts.
Yeah.
Annuals, you name it. It's gonna crush your eyes. And then a secondary summary is actually gonna be a breakdown of the fertilizer. So you're gonna know exactly, company A, they got 1,200 cubic yards of mulch in the April top dressing. Company B has 700. Okay, why 1,200? Why 700? So you're gonna get also, in addition to those summaries, you will be getting an assessment from us that states, here's what we saw. Here's some maybe red flags to watch out for.
Okay, great.
So,
And will that have a baseline when somebody says, we give 3 bags of mulch for this, but in the past, we've gotten 6? Are we gonna know that?
yeah, we can give you, what I've done in the past also is given you the current contract for each unit of our scope.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you do a side by side.
Yeah, you're gonna see, it's gonna be about this big, so, try to make it as big as I can. And also another thing, that, if I was getting ready to summarize what I told Mr. Smaha was that, for instance, you get somebody, and we've had this before, believe it or not, at a huge commercial, property, we had somebody put in like 3 bags of fertilizer for all of the ornamentals meaning trees, shrubs, ground covers. This place was ginormous, that's 150 pounds of, so that's the kind of thing we look for that, and we will let you know in our summary, those items. And so those are the items then that can be looked at in category 7 for reasonableness of all numbers. So now, we've had it before where like the RFP for instance, price category, your category is 25 points.
Yes.
We've had that as much as 40, 45. So think about that. If somebody comes in and the low bid gets those 45 points and we have no, category reasonableness, those 45 points are hard to make up for other companies.
Yeah.
So your category, like I said, is 25. That's so that's not a deal breaker. And the reasonableness is worth 15. So
I thought that was very well done, actually. That particular, the way it was organized with the price and then the reasonableness, I thought was very well balanced.
Thank you.
Well, price and experience to me are the primary.
John's done 1 or 2 of these.
Yeah.
So, as part of this, one of the questions I had asked John was, with costs going up so much, do we need, for example, fertilization, St. Augustine fertilization 7 times a year? And you were explaining that there are 3 levels of maintenance, basic, moderate, and high.
Right.
And that we use the high level.
Yes.
I guess 2 questions. One, is there much of a price difference between moderate and high? And why would you suggest we stay at high?
The reason I do that is first off, our fertilizer scopes are based off IFAS, Green Industries Best Management Practices. And again, it's for a high level of maintenance. They break out turf fertilizer, palm. Well, I don't use their palm fertilizer. I use Timothy Brochet's. He's like considered the palm king of Florida. But they are broken out. Now, I think I gave you a scenario in my response back to you, the difference between like a high and a moderate or a high and a low. There's only about 2 or 3 less applications. However, what we try to do is, since there is a fertilizer blackout where you can't put down any nitrogen or phosphorus, during a long period of time when plants need it most, we try to, and the Green Industries Best Management Practices do not take those, because ordinances are very unique to different municipalities. So they just keep going. They say during the month of June, you got to do this. During the month of July, of course, we can't do that if it calls for nitrogen or anything like that. So we try to push ours outside of that blackout period. And so because plants they're getting all the rain that washes everything out, and they're still wanting to grow. And ecologically, it's the best time of year for a fertilizer blackout, but for plants, it's not. So, but there's probably about 2 to 3 lesser applications. Sometimes those are just like a slow release nitrogen application or just a straight nitrogen.
Well, you say for basic, there's two levels fewer. So I'm thinking for moderate, there must be only 1 level.
Yeah, probably not much. So,
yeah, I'm just trying to understand what the price difference would be. Because we're going to call for high, I assume.
Yeah.
In the,
and another reason I call for high is you kind of, I've been at this for 37 years. You got to kind of shoot for the stars because you probably aren't going to get them. So if you start here, trying to be kind, you know, I mean, but,
Okay.
I mean, I'm not, you know, nothing, I just,
And then, okay, I'll move on.
we try to, first off, as far as tracking this too, we have certain specifications in our fertilizer where the week before any applications, they need to notify me and Keith so that we can track it. And we know in my reports to you all, we always put, you know, during next month, we're gonna be 1,200 pounds of this going here. And that's, you know, what, 24 bags of 50-pound bags. So we really try to track that. And so when Belinda gives us the invoices, we can back it up.
Okay, on the subject of mulch, I loved your response. We're recommending, or I guess we use shredded cypress. And I know that most of the POA communities, sub-communities in here use cocoa brown. You indicated there wasn't much of a difference in price between shredded cypress and cocoa brown.
Cocoa brown is just the color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a different,
Well, there's also just mulch called recycled wood product, and that's not necessarily pine bark, it's not necessarily shredded cypress either. And we used to, when we first, 12 years ago when I started coming down here, it was called WCI, the developers, Golden, y'all remember that? Rich, do you remember that? And that kind of went, I'm not sure where that went, it just kind of went away, and then we changed color, and now I think we're changing again. So.
Well, I just happened to buy a number of bags of mulch, even though our association does the mulching. I couldn't wait for some new plantings. And it was a cocoa brown, but it said on it, it was a specialty mulch that said something about does not deplete the cypress population. I don't think they're endangered, but and you yourself had said you prefer not to use shredded cypress as it depletes cypress trees.
Was it a cypress mulch though that was in your bags?
No.
Okay, all right, so it's probably just like a recycled wood product.
Yeah, but what I'm asking is why, if you don't like to use shredded cypress, why are we recommending it here?
I don't. I actually had pine bark. When I came here to Venetian had that as their spec. That's all they used. That was kind of mandated to us. That wasn't a decision that we would have made.
Which?
Shredded cypress.
What are you asking for in here, though?
It is shredded cypress, only because that was mandated to us by the current board at that time, because it was a developer mulch that they had put in place. Typically, I would put in pine bark mulch.
Why don't we do that?
Good idea.
Thank you. I'm trying to save the.
Yeah, I mean, the reason is pine bark is a byproduct of the pine industry, and you're not cutting shredded, or you're not cutting.
And does it hold up as well?
Yeah, a lot of people think it floats worse, you know, if it's not beveled in behind a curb or a sidewalk. It lasts longer, in my opinion, the large pine bark. So
I don't know why we wouldn't go that direction.
Anybody have a problem?
It's the big chunks.
Yeah, it's the big, chunks of, it's like a cinnamon brown color mostly, and larger chunks. What, anywhere from, John, 3 to 5 inches probably? You get a variety.
We can change it then.
Yeah. Again, like I said, it was a kind of a mandated back in that time frame, and we just never went away from it. Now, we changed color, I think, 2 or 3 times, so.
Availability remains the same?
Yeah. And difficult.
We're having trouble getting our neighborhood association involved.
And it is expensive.
Last thing I had in here was the annuals. And again, I was questioning why so many for such a short duration. Have we always used that many, and can we use more perennials? And your response was basically that this part of the spec has varied throughout the years. So I guess the question is, recognizing costs are going up dramatically, is there a better option for us in this section that would give a same kind of appearance result, but maybe last longer or not have to be replaced as often.
Some CDDs have gone for like 2 6-month rotations of perennials altogether. Back in the day when Corrine was our field manager here, I don't know how she did it, but that lady could get geraniums to grow, to keep going all year long. And so we can do that too. Currently, we've got 2 3-month annual rotations. Typically, a lifespan for a true Florida annual is only about 8 to 10 weeks. That's it. And at the 9th or 10th week, they're not looking great. That's a true annual. There are different types of perennials, though, that can be. Now, they won't look beautiful and in full color the whole time because you do have to pinch them back. A perennial like pentas or geraniums, for instance. But yes, like I said, currently though, we do have 2 3-month annual rotations and 1 6-month perennial rotation.
Well, again, I'm trying to head off what I think is gonna be a really high cost. And are there things we wanna put into the bid process that would at least temper that a little bit?
Yeah, because I think what I'm gonna ask might, maybe it's in here, but if not, does this contemplate maintaining the easements, or do we do that now? Is maintenance of easements currently in the current contract?
Define easement for me.
Well, maybe 511 Padova is a good example, you know, where people need to get back to the ponds, where, or for mowing, you know.
We do have a very color-coded maintenance exhibit that Mr. Schabaker has produced, we've been using over the years. And it's got, 4 different colors. It shows which pond banks are St. Augustine, Bahia, ornamental grasses, detailed landscape along the rights of way. All of that the CDD does maintain.
Oh, all right.
So I don't.
So it's basically, it would be, if it's anything we're currently doing, it's contemplated in here.
Yes, yeah, because this does refer right back to when they get their flash drive, they get the maintenance exhibits, this whole manual.
Yep.
And any kind of as-bills that we can provide them for irrigation.
So, we changing anything here or not?
Well, I'll be happy to change any, I know you discussed the annuals and perennials, so if there is a desire to change to 2 6-month perennials and leave it at that. I think at one point when I first started doing the RFPs down here, Andy, do you remember this? I did like 4 or 5 options for all of the annual. I know Jerry, if he were here, he would remember that. There was just so many options that were requested at that time.
Does the landscape committee I should be asking Cheryl, does the landscape committee have a view on whether we should be doing it in a different cycle?
I won't know that until February 6th. So I can certainly ask that question. I know that they've had that conversation from looking at the minutes. And, you know, if you do are you suggesting all perennials twice a year?
I'm
Or
not
still some
suggesting anything,
combination?
I'm just asking our experts, is there something we can do that would not deteriorate our appearance, but might soften the blow a little bit on?
I think that's the big issue. We don't want the place to look run down.
Not at all.
And we don't want annual plants that are beyond their 8 or 10 week life, just laying there on the ground. That looks terrible. So I think we need to keep that in mind.
Could we maybe, I don't know if this is possible, would it be possible to do this for the proposal with a caveat that the CDD can request a different organization and pricing in years 2 through 6? So, you know, do this for year 1, have that pricing all the way through, but then if we want an adjustment in years 2 through 6 and we want to go with more perennials, we can do that.
You can do an addendum to the contract.
Okay, that might solve the problem, because we're not gonna make this decision in 3 weeks.
Okay. Anything else for John?
Oh, I have one question. On the section 2 for the scoring experience, what is the expectation or the practice there? So you've got experience listed, you've got 5 people, 5 contacts. We're doing this independently. Are we all calling these people?
It is preferred that the board members do, whoever puts the score down on the score sheet
You have
should
that
hear the
conversation.
references.
So they're gonna hear from all. Hope they keep answering their phone.
Well,
Okay.
yeah.
You don't have to.
And
Yeah,
the
yeah,
landscape.
right, yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I think
so-
it makes sense. I wanna talk to someone.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we do allow, we ask for 5 references here, similar size and scale. We ask them what their duties were, dollar amount of the project, if it's still current. So, and to give us a contact name and number. So,
And with that contact, an email as well? Sometimes it's easier to contact that one,
I can,
at least at first.
Just his phone.
I can add that though.
Then they can send the same answer.
They better.
That's right.
Any other questions, changes?
How about scoring, or any of the points in the evaluation?
Great.
What do you think? Okay,
I'm fine.
Well, so based on the prior conversation, you made me think about that whole reasonableness of, would it make sense to make the price and reasonableness even at 20 and 20 instead of 20 and 15? Because if you've got somebody who comes in as low as price, and then when you look at the side by side, it's because they're all way too low and they're not appropriate.
Let me just quickly review it, see, just for the record, that you've only got 10 points in personnel. Those are your boots on the ground, the technicians who are gonna be coming in here. You have 20 points for community experience. And then part 3 is geographic proximity at 10 points. Understanding scope of RFP is 10, did they do everything correct? Financial capacity, now you do have 10 points on that. A lot of other CDDs have only had 5, because really all that really incorporates is typically what they provide us is like a profit and loss statement and their certificate of insurance.
Are they going concern?
Yeah, and a lot of times it's just 5 points. So, if you want to take maybe 5 points from that and put it on another category, perhaps price, or financial, or reasonableness, you may do that. So, because 10 points is a lot, in my
Let's do that.
opinion, to put on that
Should 5
category.
from 5 to 7?
Then I would take.
Works for me.
What category would you like to add 5 points to?
We want reasonableness, right?
Reasonableness.
Sure.
Right, I do, yeah.
So we take it from financial capacity?
Make that 5 and make
Make that 20.
reasonables
Bird.
20?
Yep.
Cool.
Any other changes? No? Okay.
Okay.
Motion supervisor? Okay, so we're gonna need a motion supervisors, to approve the RFP packet with changes, as noted on the record.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Just know that without knowing exactly the dates, I have to alter to allow the committee to form. So you might see a couple different dates in here, but the end game should still be the same.
Okay, thank you,
Did I
John.
steal this?
Thank you.
Thanks, great job.
Thank you. Do we want to move item number 5L next? And then I can provide the board with a report before we go into the FEMA funding agreement,
Sure.
which is the discussion regarding the commercial development. Okay, so Jill, you requested for this item to be added on the agenda. Do you want to cover this item?
I did, and it was just, I wanted firstly to make sure that the other supervisors know that the Neal commercial project across Laurel Road is scheduled for a planning commission hearing next week on Tuesday, the 17th in the afternoon. So my sense is it could move quickly, depending on what happens. And I think going back to the strategic plan, We talked about the back gate potentially being ingress as well as egress. I know Keith had gotten an estimate for that, which I think was around 25 grand, give or take. And then the strategic plan also talks about having a look at our perimeter in light of development outside. So I wanted to see if the board felt we need to undertake any immediate actions on getting estimates at this, or taking any action on the ingress egress at the delegate.
Action in the sense of,
Do we need to get a couple of other estimates
Oh.
for actually going forward, for
Accelerate the
example,
process.
with,
well, one of my questions was when we got that estimate a couple of meetings ago, and we made the decision to go with the repair.
yes, we
Right.
did, yes.
Initially, there was about a $14,000 or $15,000 estimate for that job.
Was that what it was?
And Keith is back now. I think my numbers are close. When we spoke about doing something with the city delegate, and we got that initial estimate as what it was called, the ballpark, it was about 14 to 15,000, I think, right?
Yes, I believe that was correct. And then we got, you know, everything hit and then everything, the price is just trying to get all that stuff is gone.
Right.
You know,
So I remember asking that question when we discussed it that later time. How did it go from 15 to 25 or 28?
Unless I'm misremembering the number, I don't know.
Well, are you suggesting that we ask Keith to get some additional bids on having that work done?
I think if we were to have to make a decision to move fairly quickly, would the board feel like we need additional estimates, or are we just happy? Because I think that vendor is a vendor that we've used typically, because if, you know, if we are gonna need, if it happens and we're gonna need to move quickly, will we be prepared to do so? I guess is the first question.
Well, I don't think it's going to be an overnight,
Yeah.
an overnight decision. If the planning commission gives a go ahead, let's assume that.
Right, yeah, then it goes to
They
council.
give a go, and then, by time anything happens, we're talking months and months away. We do have time to decide what we're doing. Are we gonna make that, entrance, egress as well, entrance and egress rather? And we certainly do have time to get estimates from,
Mhm.
other companies that
Okay.
can supply this.
Okay. I just
Even
think,
before that development was considered, I would say there was a half a dozen times that we had residents come up and say, why can't we use that as an entrance as well?
Mhm.
That came up again and again because of convenience, which is what, often what we're asked to do is provide something that is convenient for all of us. And it certainly would be convenient for me. But we can get additional estimates on it. The company that provided this one has a very good track record with us.
okay,
There are very few companies that come out and don't charge for their work, but.
he does Paul does a great business for us, and, you know, you can reach him, very easily, and they try to get out here that day or the next day, and,
So he's got a good track record, which doesn't mean that there aren't other companies out there. And I'm a believer in getting more than one estimate on things, unless it's a one-off item that nobody else makes, then I think
okay.
your hands are kind of tied.
So if we're not gonna do anything right now, though, do we wanna keep getting estimates? Because they're gonna keep changing. as
They'll
well.
expire in 30 days.
They're gonna
Yeah,
expire,
you're gonna
they're
do
not
it.
gonna be
Okay.
worthwhile.
Okay, I really just wanted to
Wasting-
raise it with, with the other supervisors and have a discussion about it, because as an example, when there was construction work being done on Laurel Road over the summer, very quickly, traffic backed up onto Jacaranda and you couldn't get into the community. It was quite bad, actually. So, I just want to sensitize everybody to that.
If something like that comes up again, we can always, I'm assuming, do a temporary and allow entrance from that gate if we have to. If it's paving that comes up or something like that, where the community is affected, we can open the gate and get somebody there to monitor, for a period of time.
Okay.
Okay?
Otherwise, I think she's just gonna annoy vendors, getting quote after quote and then doing nothing.
That's true.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. You're absolutely right. Just wanted to raise it.
Okay, good thought. Thank you.
Great. Keith, we're going to move back to you. Do you have anything to report?
No, I do not.
Any questions for Keith?
Nothing? You haven't done anything?
How about if
So you've answered most of it. I mean, we've talked about everything. The back gate was a big one, and you know, so the L&P bills and those type of things, so.
Well, I thank you to you for staying on top of that. We had a long talk last week on this. Staying on top of the LMP situation and checking out, especially stump grinding. I mean, you're only saving about 30,000 on that one.
Yeah.
Got to step up your game a little bit. Thank you, Keith.
I do actually have a couple of quick questions. The first is, I've heard from a couple of people that we've got folks coming up Chiltadella and then going through the golf course maintenance yard and.
It can happen, yep.
Yeah. Is it, do you have a sense of whether it's a real thing or not?
Oh, it's a real thing, but I don't know if it's a real problem.
Okay.
I mean, that's how, we've had, not vendors, but solicitors get in the property that way. So I've asked Kelby if he could lock that one gate, but that when all of his workers get in, we lock that one, but it doesn't happen all the time because he's got, his mind is, making sure that your putting surfaces are good.
I hope so.
And, so.
You know what he could do? He could block off that drive-through with a piece of machinery. Something like that. Just make it a lot more inconvenient to try to do. I mean, they can go around the building.
Yeah, that's right. That's where they go.
Oh.
Yeah, they go in that gate as they just before the maintenance building and they go around and come out on the other end of it.
It's more of a rare occurrence.
It's rare.
But it does happen.
It does happen.
It is available.
It does happen. But like I said, that's why I asked him, if during the day, he could close that gate so we mitigate that happening. And a lot of times those guys are out of here by 3 o'clock anyway, 4 o'clock, and that whole gate system is closed anyway.
Okay.
Any other questions for Keith?
Just remind everybody that it is 12:42, and we do have a few extra things here. If we want to stay within our.
Where did the day go?
Well, you're gonna have
Time flies when you're having fun.
you're gonna have 2 other groups that want to come in here and use these rooms very
Well,
quickly.
there's just one thing though, Jill, Cheryl, I know you guys wanted to cover the committee appointments for this meeting. I don't believe that the notification went out, re-advertising for additional, because I didn't receive anything. So I will ask Keith to make sure that that goes out, and then we can put this on the agenda for the following meeting, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, actually, because that would happen before the next facilities meeting anyway, wouldn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, okay, all right. Yep.
And we've covered item K, right, outside events?
We have, so
Okay,
we've
so-
covered item K.
We're done with that.
Let me ask a question based on what you just said. We postponed the sunshine presentation till the 23rd.
Yeah, we did.
Correct.
So do you want to postpone it again to wait for these? I mean, I'll do it whenever. Or do we want to wait for these new committee people?
I would think so. I think we should, that's a good point, Andy. I think we should delay it simply because if appointments aren't going to be made till the 23rd, those folks need to have that orientation.
So I don't know. Well, I was just asking Belinda whether the ad had been placed yet. Carrie didn't send it to me, so I don't think it has been done. So if you want to wait until whatever that first meeting is in February, I can do it then.
In March, in February.
Like I said, I can do it whenever, but just a thought.
You just change Chachi and.
Exactly. For fun.
Okay, no, we do not.
Okay.
I'll be at the workshop.
First,
Are we on district manager?
Not yet, no.
Well, yeah, because don't we have an 8:30 supervisors workshop on that first February?
yes, we
But
do.
Ernest's great idea, that there's the hour before the meeting starts at 9:30, we have a workshop at 8:30.
So then,
I think already.
But we haven't run that one yet.
okay. So however you want to calendar this board, I'm glad to do whatever.
We can probably do it the second.
The second in February?
To the sunshine?
Yeah.
So the 27th?
I won't be here.
That works.
I'll,
What-
I'm gonna
what-
be in Vietnam.
Oh, nice.
Starting that up again.
I'll see you on Thursday. Our whole block is going.
But you've had this sunshine.
I've read the
Introduction.
manual, yes.
That's, I don't see that as a
That's
big
fine.
issue.
So we'll do it on the 27th?
Do it on the 27th.
27th of
February.
Okay,
Okay.
got it.
So just as a reminder, our next meeting will take place on January 23rd, 2023 at 9:30
Wait a
a.m.
minute, wait a minute. The 23rd of what is
January,
Is our next meeting.
our next
our
meeting.
next meeting? Okay, I will not be here.
Tell Karen.
And I can't call in from where I am at.
Well, you could, but we wouldn't hear you.
So, but our workshop meeting is
The 13th.
13th of February.
February.
Okay,
Yes.
So.
I have it. All right.
Few things to cover with the board. We did hold a recovery scoping meeting with FEMA representatives on January 5th. The meeting was to discuss the damage inventory, as well as to understand the categories for the expenditures as classified by FEMA requirements for document submittals. FEMA does have 8 different categories for for the damage inventory, which is a worksheet that we preliminarily prepared for the meeting, which outlines the district's damages based on what we have received so far and what we are expecting. It was a very interesting meeting because we learned a lot of things based on what we were told originally during the original scoping phone call versus what we learned in this meeting, which was in person. For example, there's a lot of work that is going to be involved when it comes to categorizing as well as providing FEMA with the information that they want. Debris removal, you would think that if a tree is uprooted, you remove the root ball of the tree, you remove the tree, you would think it would classify as debris removal. Well, that's not the case. So if there were trees that were uprooted and root balls had to be removed, they fall into a separate category. And FEMA is asking us for GPS locations of these trees.
Of the individual tree?
Individual trees / locations. So if we had 5 trees on the same roadway, we don't have to say, okay, tree number 1, we would just specify 5 trees, provide GPS coordinates of just the roadway.
Okay.
I've partnered Keith with Carlene Farrell-Naranka, who is our field manager at Greyhawk, so that we can all work together as a team as we go through this learning experience, because it's going to be a lot of work. I provided FEMA with a draft of what I was initially told how we had to complete the damage inventory, only for it to be switched back into a different format altogether. So for example, I provided FEMA with a complete list of all of the mailboxes that were damaged that we conducted repairs for. So it was inventoried on the damage inventory one by one, based off of the top category, which would be the mailbox damages, description of damages, and then outlining each location. They want that to be separated, not line by line on the damage inventory. So if we're going to provide GPS locations, we've provided an address for the mailboxes, which we don't have to do this for an Excel worksheet. But for the trees, we have to provide a separate worksheet with GPS locations and not put it directly on the damage inventory. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
how do we
this-
determine the GPS location?
There's a way to do it. Carlene showed Keith.
You can do it with your phone?
Yeah,
Just
you
on
can do
awful
it with your
maps.
phone. It's gonna be tedious because the LMP invoices that we've received to date outline what they've been doing, removing debris, but it hasn't really been where they are outlining, okay, we removed 15 trees, and at this street, at this location. So we're gonna have to work with LMP on getting a lot of the information and the detail that we need. There are several invoices for LNP that I've held. I'm gonna be sending Scott Carlson an email with a breakdown, and a request for further details. I did mention to the board that LNP was charging the district for supervisory costs outside of the normal storm debris costs, because in many cases, they claimed they had to have a supervisor on site to supervise the additional teams and the additional people on site for the hurricane debris removal. Now, they are going to want, if any debris was disposed of outside, which we still do have areas, for example, I mentioned the stump removal, if it's taken to a particular location where it's dumped, they need the ticket numbers and permit numbers. So this is information that we will have to require from any vendor that does any work for us at this point when it comes to removal and dumping. We have to make sure. LMP did not dump, which is a lot easier, because if not, I would have to have a ticket for every single dump truck with a permit number so that we can provide it to FEMA. We did discuss the preparation of these reports. It's a lot of work. I printed every single invoice, every single check number. They want canceled checks. They said they would accept for now the copies of the checks provided, which is fine. We'll upload the documentation and provide it. I have Keith and his admin helping when it comes to providing every single copy of every single check, and I'm going to have their help when it comes to uploading documentation as well. But FEMA requested weekly meetings. I cannot meet with FEMA in person every week. We came to an agreement that we would be meeting via phone/Teams once a week. And the last week of the month, we would meet in person. So we are going to be holding, because it's not just one FEMA representative that you're meeting with at least 3 others in person and 4 others on the phone. So there's a lot of a process that we're gonna have to follow. I agreed to meet with them in person the last week of the month. We have 60 days from the date of our meeting. So we have to provide our damage inventory, which has to be signed by March 5th. So that our goal within the next couple of weeks is going to be to complete our damage inventory, to get all the details from LMP, and to make sure that we have everything uploaded, submitted, and signed off by that deadline. Now, if there are items that have not been completed, for example, FEMA understands and they know that we still have not completed debris removal, they won't send inspectors on site. So in the case of the River Club, for example, I know, Jeff, you're working on several items that we need pricing on. They will send inspectors. If we've completed our debris removal, they're going to send inspectors on site, and their inspectors are going to provide some sort of estimate, percentage, and they will follow through with that until we can provide detailed estimates providing for our costs.
Do they seem to be understanding?
They are, and they are wanting to be able to help us and answer any questions we have. It's just the process itself is very tedious. This is going to be a large claim, which we've known. I've mentioned FEMA's percentage is 75%. The district will be responsible for 25%. And they did inform us that the cost of preparation of all of this, they would provide a 5% reimbursement for. I have not spoken with Scott about this process because our meeting was very recent, coming straight off of vacation. I went straight into the meeting with FEMA. So I am going to be talking to Scott about this. We have to make revisions to what I provided, which I will be working on this week and I will submit. And we have a call scheduled for this up and coming Thursday. So Keith is going to participate via Teams with me, but the final week of the month is where he will travel. We've decided, because their representatives have to travel, our middle point would be at Great Hawk, which is a little bit of a drive for Keith, but we can meet with all of their representatives in person, and then the ones that participate via phone will participate via phone.
Okay. Well, the process starts.
It starts, yeah.
I certainly appreciate all the work that is being done. to move this forward?
I expect to be a subject matter expert on this when we're done. But it has been a learning experience for us. I was talking to John about this as it relates to landscaping and, once we are in contract negotiations with our vendors, I am gonna make language recommendations for our contracts, given what I've seen and what FEMA's requirements are. During post-hurricane, our number one priority is to clear roadways, cut down any trees that could be hazards, without really knowing or realizing that FEMA is going to ask for all sorts of information that at the time, neither the landscaper nor we thought of was gonna be necessary. I would have never known unless they told us that if a tree was uprooted and the root ball was removed, it falls into a totally different category and they want GPS locations for these items. So it's a learning curve for everyone involved.
I'm from the government, I'm here to help.
So that's an update for the board on that item.
Thank you.
Belinda, are we talking about the FEMA funding agreement at the same time?
Yes, we are. FEMA does require a funding agreement. The funding agreement was sent to me shortly before the meeting. I did provide the funding agreement to Andy. He has reviewed it. They will not process our recovery, scoping, inventory, or our claim unless they have a funding agreement in place.
It's a technical question. On page 9, the address you're using is 502 Veneto Boulevard, Venice.
Mhm.
Is that okay? It's different from our legal address?
It is. I provided, well, there's a lot of things involved here.
Yes, I
Because
just-
as a records custodian, I had to provide them with our office address as well when I filed the claim. So they don't just have the 502, they also have our Fort Myers office as well. We can change it, that's not a big deal, if need be. Overall, any issue that is reported, we would have to provide a GPS location for it.
Yeah, we'll change it.
Yeah.
I was just looking at consistency.
Yeah, I understand.
The only question I had, Belinda, was anything that we get from them is a grant, right? There's no repayment
It's a
involved.
grant,
It's a
but there
grant.
are specific clauses in there, I don't know if you saw, regarding reimbursement. So if the district were to get paid for it from insurance proceeds, obviously you would have to pay
Cough it
FEMA
up.
back.
Yeah,
Right.
yep, okay. Thank you.
And then Jeff, on the River Club, anything we can do to help you to get these proposals, let me know. I think you're in a pretty difficult situation when it comes to getting estimates from vendors. We're experiencing it across the board. Fence companies are charging to come out to give you proposals. I don't know on the roofing companies what the situation is. I'm pretty sure it's the exact same issue. You can maybe get information from Carlene on the vendor she's using, or she used at Greyhawk for roofing issues.
Yeah.
So that, we can try to get estimates for these items. I mean, they can be preliminary and, we don't have to have the exact amount, but, we can provide the damage inventory notifying FEMA that this is subject to change based on final numbers.
Thank you.
Something just crossed my mind. I've had 2 homeowners come to me that are having their roofs replaced.
Mhm.
And they both said, do we want their roof tiles? Because the vendor who's gonna replace them is gonna dump them, probably.
Do they match?
So these 2 folks that both live on Portofino, I said, I don't know if we want them. But, and they're not replacing these roofs tomorrow, but it's something to think about. We need a place to store it. I have no room in my garage.
Jill lives right down there.
Yeah, absolutely. My husband will get rid of his power tools, no problem.
We would need a place to store it, but I thought it was an interesting.
Well,
Do
it's
they
almost
match?
because I think the POA is gonna be facing that issue because of.
Because we had that whole
replacements and
issue,
stuff,
right,
so-
with Mike Krejci
Yeah.
and trying to find the
Well,
tunnels
the-
that match.
The matching color is, we had some roof work done on our house, they painted it.
Yeah.
It's not perfect.
But this had to do, as I recall, with
The
the,
size?
with the,
The interlocking.
yeah,
They don't
yes.
make that
Yes.
anymore.
Right, it had to do with the shape of it.
Right, they don't make those interlocking barrel tiles any longer. I guess they can be made specially, but
Is that what we have here?
I don't know.
I don't
It's not the heritage.
I think they probably are because this roof was done when the houses were done, but the houses that I'm aware of have it, like my house, they have an interlocking tile. The new process does something else.
Maybe the roofer that gives you a proposal can take a look at these homes and tell you whether or not these are a match or are compatible.
Yeah, it was the shape, like you said, that I remember being the issue.
Maybe if it's people who have the same color, maybe it's worthwhile to say, yes, we want to keep them, even if we just, because you can't get those anymore.
And
It
then-
was an offer that was made, I thought it was an interesting offer.
So Jeff, one more thing, on the awnings or tennis canopies, according to FEMA, they are looking for, if you're going to move forward with replacements, they would obviously reimburse for items that are improved. So what they mean by that is that you have taken into consideration what failed possibly. I mean, it was a hurricane, but if you take additional measures for anything preventative, for example, a different type of awning that can be removed easier, that won't be damaged in the future, bolting, any of those type of improvements are things that need to be listed.
Thank you.
Any questions for me?
Other than FEMA?
Other than FEMA?
Okay, I just have one quick one.
Sure.
Well, why don't we approve?
Oh,
Well, do we want
sorry.
to approve the funding
Yes.
agreement?
Sorry.
Okay.
So just be a motion to approve
I'll make a motion that we approve the FEMA
funding agreement.
agreement as
Presented.
presented.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Thanks, sorry, Jeff.
Okay, go ahead, Jill.
Super quick, I think, super quick. So, because you all been kind enough to send me the contracts, I was looking through the contract on the privacy gate personnel, and I noted because of the change last year, I think the contract renews at the end of January. I think it was a multi-year contract. But I'm wondering, does the base cost change? In other words, I'm wondering if there's going to be if there's going to be a bump on what they're charging us. Is there now a disconnect in the budget?
Well, they still have to come to the board for approval.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we went through this with them at another district
Okay.
where they come forward with recommendations on what their increase, you don't have to accept their increase amount. So I do know that they have reached out to Keith
I had a meeting with them on Friday.
about an increase. Typically what will happen is we would bring this back to the board for
Got it.
consideration. And then this is something you would need to take into consideration
Understood.
for your proposed budget.
Okay, I was just eyeballing that, thought, ooh. So, okay, thanks, that's all I had.
Any other questions for me?
Do we want to take some of these other items that we haven't covered yet, except for whatever, and put it off to the next meeting?
I know Jeff, for example, you added the universal access quote for the River Club exterior parking lot access to the pool and the upgrading of the tennis court lights to LED. I don't know if you want to cover those. Do we want to cover the resolution for the security related procedures, or do we want to move that to the next meeting?
I would definitely like to do the tennis lights.
Okay. Do we want to move the security related procedures resolution to the next meeting?
Well,
The post orders?
Yeah, I prefer not to go over the 4 hours for financial reasons.
my concern is that we have somewhat of an attractive nuisance there with that gate being open and all. And they don't lock it or anything, and it's an accident waiting to happen.
Around the pool?
Yes.
Yes.
You didn't mean the lights, you mean.
I mean, a little kid can walk, just pull the gate open, walk in,
Well,
and
that's
jump in the pool.
That's a violation.
Yeah, it's a
Yes,
violation.
it is, yeah,
Well,
so the universal.
So,
We need to take immediate action to correct that situation.
right, so can the gates be repaired?
We have a quote for, I believe, $22,000, Keith, is that?
But that's for a whole new universal access.
Right.
So that's not, sorry, that's not in the reserve. Where's that money gonna come from is my question. So at least in the short term, until we can, maybe next year fund it, can we repair those locks and get those things
We can
locked?
get those repaired, they just weren't prepared, just because, then the doors were left open because of the work that was going on at the tiki bar. And so I can call, or Jeff can call Paul and get them out here and get those repaired. That whole gate system needs to be replaced. It needs to be a heavier duty, gate system all the way around from there to the back out here. They're flimsy, the system, can be repaired, but that gate system, just from what, on the liability part, I think we need to get to it. And this is a heavier duty gate that they're putting in. It's like the ones that the POA put out on the river walks. And so, I mean, they're a good construction and last, till, I retire.
One of the things that I think beats them to death is that they slam them.
Yeah.
And can they put as you have on an aluminum door on your home, for example, a check in there, a closing device that they don't slam?
Yeah, the hinges on there can be adjusted, like the ones out here at the Riverwalk.
Yeah.
They can adjust those hinges so that you don't want it to slam.
But you want it to close
You want it to
quickly.
close. And so, yes, they can do that. And these gates out here, I'm not really sure if that is part of that hinge system. I'm gonna say it might be, but I think it's old and, I can get Paul out here and Jeff and I
Take a
can,
look at
get it at least fixed so that it's locked now. And I believe that's what we want because they don't have to come through the pool anymore, through the office to go out to the pool anymore. Correct?
Well, I like that because then we can control who's going to the pool. But we need to take immediate action.
Who's doing control at those doors? I'm not.
No. Well, to go through past your office, you need a car to get out.
Well, you would need a car to get in there anyway, after we get it fixed, into the pool.
Well,
No, but if we've got an issue,
we have an
it needs
issue.
to be addressed.
We need to put a sign up says danger, and maybe I'm overreacting
No, you're not. We need to fix it.
there's
Well, but if they're fixed, what's the danger?
We need to fix it. is what
we need to
do.
fix it immediately.
Well, I think he says he can do that.
You can do it tomorrow, by tomorrow?
Well, I can't
That's
speak
a-
for Paul Savage.
Right.
But we can put cones out there and block it off so nobody can go through there. And they continue to come through the building on their way out to the pool. All right, until we get Paul out here to get it fixed.
I'm confused. What's the danger there that there's not danger over here?
Is there card access over here? There's no card
No,
access.
it's open. It's been open.
So there's
It's
no.
open, the food servers use it,
to go
keep it open so that they can go through there without having to hit that card all the time. And so they open that gate up, okay? The new system that they're wanting stops that process where they don't have to bolt that gate open. All right, there's another side that the servers can go through easier.
We know what you mean.
That word. And so they can, we'll just have to, keep that closed.
What's the problem we're trying to solve here? Just lock the gate? Is that the problem? It just needs to be locking again, like it used to.
Right. I can't, and Paul can come out and get that done. When he can get that done, hopefully, he can send somebody out today if that's as soon as we're done here, I'll call him or tomorrow this week. If not, then we can put a lock on that.
Didn't we just disconnect the magnet system?
Then it's open all the time.
No. Isn't that what we did?
Oh, I don't know what they did.
It just unlocked. It just you put it there and it doesn't hold because the magnet, the electronic system is
Well, that could be,
disconnected.
and it won't take long for him to come out and fix what's there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. we
But
just
I
need
think if it can't be fixed, like within the next 48 hours, you need a sign. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
well,
That says
yeah, we
danger,
need-
something.
What's the danger?
If a kid walks in and falls in the pool, there's no.
It's against code.
It's against code.
Well, we can chain up that part and then keep this backside locked,
I don't
and
like
the
a
servers are just
sign
gonna have
idea.
to.
I think we should just fix it or.
Okay, put
I
a
think
chain
secure it
around the
somehow,
door.
right.
And
Just fix
it's just, that's why I inquired about director's insurance. I'm telling you.
Then we can discuss this proposal down the road, the next meeting.
Okay, so
Or
what have we
put it in
done?
reserve.
He will take immediate action to, close that gate.
Got a bicycle chain?
Mhm.
Like a lock on at night.
Well, bicycle chain, yeah, you got one?
Yeah. Bicycle chain on it.
Okay, so,
Bicycles are dangerous.
They're the only thing I'm talking about with the lights.
okay. So we do have, the other item, which was item number I, the consideration of the synergy lighting proposal for upgrading the tennis court lights to LED. This is behind tab number 9 for your review.
Some of this damage on, or maybe it was emails that came, some of this is hurricane related?
Pole,
Or the
pole
poles
on
came
court
down?
2, right? I think, Ernest, there's a pole on court 2
Yes,
that
there's
came
a-
down.
Yes. I don't know if it's covered, we're insured for it.
Well, that would fall under the damage inventory. It would go on the damage inventory.
Okay, so it's something that's been noted so far for the
We have
damage.
insurance for it. as
Is
opposed
there
to
any
just
other
FEMA.
vendor that provides
FEMA,
this?
I'm not FEMA, but our insurance agent did review the tennis courts in that area. So it was reported.
So we might get insurance reimbursement.
Yeah,
that's
Forget
right.
FEMA for the moment.
Right. Are there any other vendors that provide this service?
Dave,
The lighting?
did you talk to other people did you get the estimates or did the facilities
Um,
committee get the estimates?
No, the people that did the work on course 5 and 6,
Provided the estimate.
Senator, yeah, they did. And I've had experience with this at a prior club, and I've surveyed and and I've extensively surveyed. The price that they quoted for the court 5 and 6 was almost like 10 grand for both courts, or let's just say 5,000 a court. And if you had 5 courts, like the previous club I was at, 5 courts, that'd be 25,000. I started at 35,000 with them and got them down to 30,000. And that price was the lowest price, but the work was incredible. The other bids I got on a 5-court facility was 42, 48, and over 50. They were so high. The problem with getting a low price or an other bids and estimate, I've seen the work that they finished and the way the angles were. Those lights are phenomenal. The price is phenomenal. And this was after what supposedly all these price increases have gone up. The prices I got, which were close to above 40, that was back in 2019, 2020. I didn't get any other bids. Quite frankly, I don't think you're gonna get anything lower, maybe a little bit, but then you don't know the outcome. That's all. I just.
When the tennis lights are used, whether they're adequate or not,
I'm
are
sorry?
all 6 courts lit at once?
Sorry?
When the lights that are out there, I mean,
Yes.
this is just a question, has
Sure.
nothing to do specifically with this.
Okay,
Because I can see the tennis courts from my house.
right.
It appears as though they're all lit. Is it like one switch and they all go on?
No, one switch, you can turn one cord on at a time.
You
On
can,
and off, yes, you can.
okay. Because sometimes maybe I come at the wrong time. Sometimes they're lighted, but nobody's on.
Well, there is an internal timer that we control here and like at 10 o'clock, so if someone leaves them on, they shut off.
They will
Same thing in the morning, they won't come on, so that way some crazy kid comes and hits the thing, which we could lock those things in, but I don't think we need to. But there is an internal timer, which is good.
Okay.
The current lights on courts 1 through 4, someone replaced them with bulbs, they just do not like the cord, so that, yeah.
No, that I'm aware of, and I understand that. When that was happening, a question that came from this board is, do we need an electrician to do it? And perhaps we should have looked into that a little bit further at the time. But not looking in the rearview mirror any longer and moving forward, they can be individually, court by court, turned on and off. There is an external device that shuts them off if they're left on.
There's an internal right in here that will, the timer is set for about 10 PM and it comes on as early as 6. That's just for our maintenance people. And 10 PM in case residents are after 10, yes.
Okay.
And then they're individually, the courts right now, the switches are for one court.
Okay. Ernest, what else were you gonna say? Because this is,
Well,
you're
the
the
issue
tennis
was,
guy.
it's, well, my question would be for the reserves, whether or not identifying how we are paying this. And apparently, Ken and Cheryl looked at it earlier today, and
There's 10,000 a year in for lighting for this year and next. Question for somebody, maybe it's Dave. What was the final cost of doing all the reclaying, laser, all that?
Adding the like 11 tons per quart?
Everything we just did when we shut down, roughly.
I think the contract was 66.
So a lot less than we had in the reserve.
I don't.
think so.
That's good news.
What, are you talking about the clay court?
66.
Yeah.
Dropped 66,000.
Yes.
Right, for all the clay, but again,
Okay.
that's culmination of years of.
So, good, so a lot less than we had in the reserve for that.
So
So that frees
So
up
there's
money to do
what
the
you're
lighting.
saying is there's money there?
That's what I'm trying to go with.
Yeah,
That
thank
From a
you.
reserve standpoint, we're still ahead of the game.
So, and I have a question for you, Dave, then if we were gonna do the 1 through 4, we'd also have to do the 4,800 to repair the pole on
Well,
Court 2, right?
actually, I spoke with, because we were looking at timetables and stuff. He said that, to get it up and going, he could have it up and going in 1 to 2 weeks. Not the pole, to replace the pole, he could do that later because the pole may take up to 3 months.
Oh, just to get it.
It's not in stock. But he
It's
said
in
you could
China.
still do it without it. Now, I needed to ask him what he was gonna do at court 2, but to me, if we
Okay.
could get 5 courts up or 3 more additional courts, then there could be activities and programs, but
So what's the number?
not necessarily to answer your question.
Well, his quote says a separate quote would be created to install the pole on Court 2.
Right,
Do we have any idea what he's, order
I have the
magnitude, how much
number.
that would be
yeah, it's $4,761
for the pole?
for the pole.
Yeah, that is, but isn't that? I
It's
don't
a
know if
double
that's
head
Covered by
pole.
insurance, but that's the pole that got knocked over,
That's
right?
the pole that got
the
knocked over, and that's a double head pole.
replacement costs, including the actual light fixture.
No, it's just the pole, replace missing pole.
Doesn't say light fixture?
No, it just says the pole with a fitter and adapter bracket and it's a 2-sweep arm pole.
Okay, that's fine, then that's the arm and then.
So
I
it would
think,
be
yeah.
so if we're all in, you're talking about $28,000,
Well, this is 22.
right? With this,
22 plus the pole.
right, okay.
Okay, I'm good with this.
Okay, so I make a motion.
But those lights, once installed, like, they're almost good for like 15, 20 years. That's.
Okay.
So I make a motion to engage the services of Synergy Lighting to make the repairs and do the installation as well as to order the pole we just described,
I'll second that.
Subject to preparation of an agreement with council.
subject to preparation by
Second.
council.
I knew that.
Cool.
Okay, Jill seconded it. Any other discussion? Can we call a vote?
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When are we getting the quote to dome the courts?
Oh,
Will that be coming soon?
But it has to be heated first, and then my tennis players want the best.
Moving on.
But before we leave that subject there, just quickly for Cheryl and Ken, because I think Jeff is gonna need to talk about lighting, out at the tiki. Is that,
Oh,
we
yeah.
can't be shifting from things from one bucket to another, can we, in case we need?
Reserve is a guideline.
Okay, okay, all right.
I'll also mention that it's 119 and we really don't want to.
I know, no, I know, I just wanted to know.
For
I'm done.
financial
I'm
reasons,
done.
we want to
I'm
send
done.
these
I'm done.
people on their way.
Okay.
So,
Defer, Jay?
So the fountain, proposal, we can table this until the next meeting.
Okay.
I'm gonna give Keith Superior Waterways his contact so he can get a second, proposal for this one.
So you had F and G
What about
also,
that?
right?
Correct.
So just on that, quick question on that, Keith, is that fountain just ornamental? Or does it have some other function?
It helps aerate the pond as well. I mean, there is other areas, this is the fountain, and,
Well, it doesn't
15.
aerate, let's clarify that. It's mostly decorative. Does the fountain help with some sort of water circulation? It does, but only on the top level, not on the bottom.
So it's not an aerator.
So it's not an aerator.
Just because it's.
Yeah. Aerators typically, the diffusers are at the bottom of the lake, so they circulate throughout the lake in itself.
that's in Bella Vista, right? We're talking about
Yes, pond 15.
15.
pond 15. Now,
It's the fountain.
the POA, or the HOA in there, is getting a part for that, and they think that they own that fountain. It's their responsibility.
I think they do too.
I can go in and look.
Well, no, I used to own a condo in there, that's why. But it seemed like that subject came up once before.
We can double check just to be sure, but,
Well, we ought to find out.
I mean, I've had this talk with Sue a couple times, and she tells me, oh, we're just waiting on a part for it to come so we can get it fixed.
Sue's pickleball gets approved, we'll approve the fountain.
discussion regarding outside events, we've discussed, Neil, we've discussed advisory committee appointments. We're gonna table this for the next, meeting.
Right.
Keith is gonna send out a notification on this. The consideration of the minutes of the Board of Supervisors meeting, held on November 14th, 2022 are behind tab number 11 for your consideration.
Yes.
Are there any questions, comments, and/or changes to the minutes as presented?
I have no additional changes on that one.
Not, then we'd be looking for a motion to approve.
So approved. Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The next item would be the consideration of the minutes of the Board of Supervisors meeting held on December 12th, 2022. Supervisors, these we're going to table to the next meeting. I will have Carrie remove Mr. Cassell's comments and just reference his statement is attached to the minutes.
Can't we approve it based upon that being done?
We can, if you'd like to.
Well, I asked Mr. Castle when he was here if that was good with him, and he was fine with it.
Okay,
And I just have one change on line 207.
okay.
Tiny. It said, Ms. Pizarro has the board consider suspending any future events, it's just future non-resident events, just so that's clear in the record.
What line number again, Joe?
207, do you want this? I have it printed, Belinda, if you like.
You can, I'll just give it to Carrie,
You
it'll be
betcha.
easier for her.
Thanks.
Okay. So then we've been looking for a motion to approve the minutes with changes as noted on the record.
I'll make
Yes,
the motion.
with changes as referenced and adding Mr. Castle's comments.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We now have the acceptance of the advisory committee meeting minutes. This is a consent item for the landscaping advisory committee meeting of November 7th, 2022. These are being presented for your acceptance.
Move.
There's a motion by Ernest to accept. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Second by Cheryl. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Supervisor requests or comments? Are there any supervisor requests or comments?
I'm just going to quickly hand out the year-end statement from our Fidelity investments for everybody. I'm sorry?
Take one and pass it down.
That's
Mr. Educator.
That's right.
Any other supervisory requests or comments?
Sorry.
No, I'm sorry, just make sure everyone pick up.
I'm assembling, and you probably have it as well, a recap of the tiki bar costs and stuff. I think what might be more efficient for this meeting is if I'll touch base with you, Belinda, on what I have, and then you'll know what's already been paid, and that can be provided to the board at the next meeting, if everybody's okay with that, unless there are questions on the costs.
Sure.
Cool. Sounds good. Thanks. Any other supervisory requests or comments?
Once again, I would like to compliment the general manager on the event on Friday at the Tiki Bar. Congratulate your staff. Chris did a yeoman's job serving and all, as well as you ran that event out there. Then we came in here and had dinner, and it was just a fantastic event. Our community is looking for things like that, and I agree with you guys. We need to concentrate on our residents. Build it, they will come. That's it.
Any other supervisory requests or comments?
I don't care. Too expensive.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is 1:26 PM. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 1:26.